By choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power. And
good morning. How are you doing? Welcome to Friday. It's the 4th day of September. It's 2020. 2020 is going. Everybody is waiting for 2020 to go. Just go.
Leave us alone.
Just go. Okay? Just go. How are you doing, Ndu?
Fine, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Good morning.
Good morning to you.
How are things in the land of Latif?
Things are good. Well cultivated. Waiting for the harvest.
Oh, okay. Even. Agriculture is your forte? Okay.
Waiting for the harvest.
Okay. Good to see you, man.
Good to see you. So, we are still continuing with our study. What did you have?
I had macaroni for dinner. At
Macaroni is
6:30.
that one, the big spaghetti.
The one with very many shapes.
Yes, the one with many shapes.
What time was dinner?
Dinner was 6:45.
You know,
Yeah.
for the longest time, before I actually knew it was called spaghetti, I thought it was called spaghetti.
Spaghetti.
Yes. And I pronounced it as such. Till I was adequately corrected
Spaghetti.
and shown the path to righteousness. Which I have since followed.
I have this friend who's a Somali,
Yes.
and they just call it Basta.
But
Well, yes.
Just forget about all those things: macaroni, spaghetti, Basta.
it's all basta.
Well, yes, it's a very close kin of the English variety pasta. It's close. See?
That's it.
It's amazing about the similarities in languages. I mean, yesterday, can you imagine my joy when I understood, when I actually got to figure out that the English language and the language of Nigeria, the Nigerian language is close. See, yesterday I came across the word open, and then I realized that open is actually open. So I figured, hey, similarities.
CT. You realize that open is open.
Yes,
I realize that open is open.
yes,
You didn't know before.
no,
That open is open.
yes. Then Eric added to my stove knowledge and told me that even it was an English word.
Hey. And it can also be 11. The number before 12.
Yes. Yep.
It says a 12, 12.
Yes.
Welcome to the show. It's going to be an interesting Friday. We'll be discussing a number of things. So we will speak to the former Auditor General, first Auditor General in the Constitution of Kenya 2010, Dr. Eddie Ouko. There was a story about him, and we talked about this. It was covered in the Financial Standard on Tuesday, where he was basically just giving his experience in office in those days. And we want to hear now from the man himself. So we'll bring the horse, we'll open the mouth. We'll get it from the horse's mouth. Horse will open mouth today, and we'll hear it from him. And then also, I mean, all these studies that are released by the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics, plus other surveys in the country, they are showing the adverse effect of COVID-19 on people's livelihoods. People have lost jobs, people have lost incomes. Those that were running businesses have had to shut down businesses. You can imagine very many of the people who operate pubs. And when we spoke to the Association of Hotel Keepers, when we spoke to the bar or pubs and restaurant operators association, they were all telling us the thousands of pubs around the country, and more than 50% of those are unlikely to reopen. So you can imagine the owners of those businesses, the people who worked in those businesses. So what are the people doing now? There's a lot of suffering in the community and the society. We will want to discuss this and just basically engage with our audience today on this, what's happening. just what is happening. How are you feeling? How are you faring?
Yeah.
What do you know of anybody who's not doing well and what's happening to them? So that's what we'll be discussing. But of course, we have always to begin with COVID-19 because that's where we are. This is 2020. We are fighting a big enemy. Big enemy.
Looking at the numbers in Kenya, from what we saw yesterday, another 277. Okay, hold on. Let me just get that number right before I tell a lie. 212 people test positive yesterday, taking the numbers in Kenya to 34,705. 4 dead yesterday, whereby the day before, 0 deaths, or rather 2 days before, 0 deaths, and now the day after that, 5, and then yesterday, 4. 34,705, and these 212 that tested positive were from a sample size of 3,937. Still testing quite low, but that's what it looks like currently. Spread across the country, 195 patients recovered from the disease. 141 of them are under the home-based care program. 54 have been discharged from hospitals, taking the total number of recoveries to 20,644. All right. We look around the world, 26,467,490 coronavirus cases, with 873,213 deaths, unfortunately, around the world.
Let's look at Africa today, actually. You know, so let's start with these countries that are having issues: Mali, Cameroon, and the rest. How are they doing? Or any the countries that have elections this year?
You've picked up on your French.
Oui.
Congratulations. Mali,
Merci.
2,807 cases in Mali with 126 deaths. We know what's going on with the coup that happened a couple of weeks ago. But again, Corona takes a backseat in terms of all of this. If you want to look around the country, total tests having done 40,000 tests against a population of 20 million.
They've only done 40,000 tests.
Yes.
Okay.
So about 1,900 tests per
1 million people.
Yes, per 1 million.
Oh,
people.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Somalia?
Oh, you want to look at Somalia? Well, let's look at what's going on in Somalia. So we know that there was a problem there. 3,310 cases and 98 deaths. 2,481 recovered. We're looking at a population of 15 million, 16 million people. It doesn't even give us the total tests that have been done in the country. It's not a statistic that they've been able to cover or been willing to cover. So
We really can't tell.
We can't tell, unfortunately.
And yet, what is of interest, since we're talking of Africa, if we were to consider the reality is that everything that was predicted about this continent with regards to COVID has not come to pass. And it's even puzzling scientists. This issue of the peaking. Many African countries are not peaking. Remember, we were touted as having some of the worst healthcare systems in the world.
And the worst habits.
Yes, and then there's overcrowding.
And no water.
No water.
No soap.
No soap.
Yeah.
And generally poor. And yet, despite all that, given the situation that Africa is in, we should just have been literally, as predicted, dropping off one by one in the streets. It hasn't happened.
But that's why I was asking about these numbers. Let's look at Africa, because there are those that keep going back into these statistics and saying, look, Africans, they're not even testing, so we can't even tell what's happening.
That is also true. But as you correctly put it on so many occasions, you cannot hide deaths. Just like you can't hide illness.
You cannot hide illness.
Yes. So how do you explain it? Scientists are having difficulties explaining it because they're looking around and it is not difficult to explain. Look at Tanzania, for instance. They more or less said, look, we are just going to get on with our lives, okay?
Yeah. Forget it.
And let's see.
Just forget it.
Are people dropping off in the streets of Tanzania? No.
It would have been reported if they were.
Though those, earlier videos that were circulating, the body there, somebody looks sick there, those there. Of course, the letter from the U.S. Embassy in Dar es Salaam that was, painting a very different picture. But then the situation on the ground, really, if you look at Kenya borders Tanzania, how many kilometers?
It's 100, no.
Many.
I'm trying to remember what it was, 192 or something. I forget.
Several
It's quite a
counties,
stretch,
basically.
though.
So we're talking
Yes.
about Kwale, Taita Taveta, Kajiado, Narok,
Migori.
Migori, all these counties bordering Tanzania. Do we hear of people crossing over because they are running away from death? Because people,
Or do we hear spikes?
or do we hear
on
around
our
the
side?
border
Because
towns?
if the argument is that you can't get the numbers in Tanzania, then an overlap would be we'd be able to get numbers in Kenya.
Kenya.
Are we getting it? The answer is no.
We're not. We're not. That tells you something about what's happening there. And it's the same, even Rwanda, I'm not saying this, anything, even Uganda are not reporting, spikes around the border towns.
One of the things that ought to have happened by now, given that a lot of the urban dwellers in Africa live in what are referred to as slums, the overcrowding there is profound. This should have sparked off a real serious spike in COVID infection, just the habitation. And then these areas, the areas of habitation are also known to lack in certain basic public health. I mean, the communities, they don't have running water.
Yep.
I think we also have, there's a possibility that, that this virus is well and amongst a lot of these communities that we are talking about, but by virtue of the fact that testing is not being done, you wouldn't know. And I think that quite a number of people have had the virus. I think quite a number of people have it. And it's possible that they're either asymptomatic or the symptoms are not so serious that are going to get them bedridden. They can still go about and do their business. So there's no reason for them to suspect. And even if they do suspect, they're not willing to, do they're not willing to be down at that moment.
What is helping the bodies fight?
We don't know. That's the thing. That's another one of the things that you don't know.
Genetic
that science
makeup,
has not been
physiological
applied to it.
makeup? Is it
Yeah.
what the body has fought?
It's a
Or just
robust,
another opportunity
it's
to
actually
fight
a
it
very
off.
robust immune system.
Yeah.
Yes.
That has met with very many other things historically
So
that
it's,
you've been able
it's
to fight
combat
off.
ready.
That you've been able to fight off previously. So I mean, this is not the one that's going to get you down.
This one comes along and tells us, Kuja.
We're
You
ready
see,
for you.
if you look at India, the numbers just keep rising. And the conditions that I'm referring to is also, these conditions are best exhibited in a place like India. But if you look at the numbers as a percentage of the population, even in India, then you'd say it isn't really alarming.
Yeah.
Not that there's any death that should not be considered alarming, but the numbers are not.
Comparatively.
No,
Yeah,
no,
yeah,
they're
yeah,
not.
yeah.
And then if you're talking about Africa, look at, say, South Africa, where they've been doing some really serious testing. The truth of the matter is, again, even there, the numbers are not really daunting. The numbers are rise, yes, but as a percentage, they're not really daunting.
The health system has not been overrun.
No, it hasn't. That is the truth of the matter. Now, you can explain around it, but that is just the simple reality. And yet, countries that have better systems, infinitely better systems, are being overrun.
Seriously so. Seriously so. Maybe Magufuli and his people really prayed for the whole continent.
Oh, the prayer work.
They just didn't pray for it. So let's take a break. This is the situation room. So this is the situation. The next thing is after that, we just on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. Time for us to get the weather. And then
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise.
You're listening to Spice FM. The weather with Spice FM.
And lows of 23. Stepping out of Kenya now into Kampala, where it's partly cloudy. And in
Spice FM. Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right.
Good morning, wherever you are this happy Friday morning. Well, remember, the live stream is up. Spice FM KE, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. CT, what is today's proverb?
Milk and honey have different colors. May I also say taste? But they share the same house peacefully.
Right. Okay. So you're taking us to Canaan today.
That is the land of milk and honey.
Okay. All right. So milk and honey have different colors.
But they share the same house peacefully.
Sawa.
okay.
Sawa basi.
Yes.
The big headlines. Start.
KEMSA bosses expose their dirt. COVID billions probe. Under pressure, the agency's board and management engage in a dramatic blame game over the alleged procurement irregularities in a house probe.
Right.
So the drama is just beginning.
The drama is too real.
I'm telling you.
That is in which paper?
The Standard.
Okay.
We look at another one. Let me tell you what this one says.
Carry on.
Now, the Kenya Medical Supplies Agency KEMSA managers yesterday engaged in a blame game as they fought off allegations of complicity in the questionable procurement of COVID-19 essentials. Two of the suspended KEMSA managers who appeared before the National Assembly Health Committee blamed each other over the contracts that led to an oversupply of COVID-19 equipment at the expense of taxpayers. Members of the Parliamentary Committee and the KEMSA board chair, Kembi Gitura, watched in disbelief as the suspended CEO, John Manjari, and procurement director, James Charles Juma, who is under probe by the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission, kept blaming each other. Gitura revealed that the board did not approve the management's decision to overshoot their budget of 4.7 billion to the 7.6 billion shillings they incurred at the questionable procurement. He also accused the management of keeping the board in the dark while they went on a spree to contract companies for the supplies. We warned, and I quote, the management of every opportunity that they bungled the procurement. Then certainly they will see the EACC, DCI, and Auditor General and all other investigation bodies following them. That is sadly where we are now. That's what Gitura said. He said the board did not approve the expenditure that led to the overshooting of the budget. The matter did not come to the attention of the board until August last month, he said.
So they're just,
It's back and forth. You did, I didn't, you did.
the director of procurement says one thing, the CEO says the other, and there's of all these things, one thing that is standing out is that the board is not involved.
According to them.
The board is just, the board is an observer.
You brought it to us.
That's the job of the board,
to observe.
just to observe.
But of interest now, they brought in someone else into this discussion, the director of procurement.
Yes. Those are the two suspended fellows.
And the issue of the bus,
This one, the bus now is being carried overhead and is being thrown.
On him.
well,
He's shifting it.
he came laden with documents.
He had
And he
everything.
said that actually, he had warned. First of all, we're talking about irregularities. The big okay,
Today is your turn. Don't
it's
worry.
my turn. The
Everything
big
is okay.
irregularity.
Irregularity.
I'm having a red lorry, yellow lorry moment.
Just say irregularity.
The irregularity,
Wow. It's easier than the correct word, but okay.
it rolls easy on the tongue,
Okay.
is that there is a ceiling of 4.9 billion that this entity is not supposed to surpass.
Yes.
And he wrote a letter and he brought the evidence. When
And I
they hit
told
3
them.
billion, said, guys,
Watch out.
watch out. Guys. And they did not watch out. They probably watched in.
They exceeded it by 3 billion.
Nicely. So
telling
they hit 7, just so that, okay, they can approximate
It's an
what
emergency.
was. Yes. Look, 7 billion was reached with the dams. Okay.
Only.
Yes. So, seems to be your benchmarking 7. Good
At
number
least,
here.
I mean.
Now, the thing is, the star,
So he seems to be saying that he was overruled by the
that
CEO.
is what he is saying. This thing has gone round. It's back with the CEO.
Yeah, he said
he was
very
he was
clearly.
he was alerting the management, and management led by CEO overruled.
Yes, and he
And
goes
the board
further.
is unaware what is happening.
The board says it didn't approve.
He didn't approve.
And
He
it was
said
not
that-
even aware.
He said that at every opportunity he told them, you guys will be followed by DCI EACC. I have told you, you've overshot. And that's what we're experiencing now.
Now, he has gone further and said that the principal secretary and the minister are really not involved in procurement processes.
This is the director.
Yes.
Suspended director.
Yes. He says these people are not involved. They can talk about the actual process of procurement. Says they're not involved. So, the Star, having got this information, have an interesting headline. KEMSA clears Mochacho, Kagwe in COVID. What is wrong with me and names this week?
Don't worry. You'll be all right.
Here I was yesterday referring
To
to the
Kiraive
chairman, whose name is Akile Muradi, and I decided that he should be Kiraive. No, this is not good.
Don't worry. Just
Don't worry, City Munga.
Mochache and Kagwe, okay, he clears them of COVID funds saga. Says no, they are not involved. Eric, middle name Prophet, had said this thing. Wait and see. It's going to go around. CEO. It's gone round under the bus, over the bus, inside the bus. CEO.
Ay.
a bust.
This is one job that you don't
Oh,
want to
I
take.
haven't finished yet.
Bado, tuendelee.
No. They've also said that part of the donation that Jack Ma had,
I beg.
yes,
Right.
part of it didn't reach Kenya from Ethiopia.
It's still in Ethiopia.
I cannot say for certain. I just know it didn't reach Kenya.
Oh, for
And
crying
it was
out
supposed
loud.
to leave Ethiopia to come here. So, okay. Now,
So, okay, that bit of the Jack Ma, let me just handle that, okay?
yes.
According to this story in the Standard, first of all, the Parliamentary Committee, the National Assembly Committee on Health, had summoned the bosses of these two companies that had been adversely mentioned over this whole saga, including the clearance of the Jack Ma donations. And this is Crown Healthcare Company and Megascope Company. But yesterday she was like, okay. In our letter summoning you to appear before this committee, we had told you that we want you to come and tell us the role you played in the clearance of these goods from JKIA. We have since established that what we were hearing was just rumors, that as a matter of fact, your two companies were not involved in this clearing. So when you come, we're not going to ask you those questions about what we have since established. We have evidence. I don't know how they got the evidence. Okay. But the Chief Administrative Secretary in the Ministry of Transport, Chris Obure, notified the committee that the entire donation from Jack Ma was cleared by the government clearing agency, which was then domiciled in his ministry. He, however, revealed that 21 packages of this Jack Ma consignment were missing when the donations were being cleared after arrival from Ethiopia, where it was channeled through. So, in that story by the Star, it's sounding like they disappeared in Ethiopia. In the story, my reading is that they disappeared somewhere.
Ethiopia, that's why I focus. They didn't get to Kenya. I'm not talking about them leaving Ethiopia. They were supposed to leave Ethiopia, but they didn't get to Kenya.
So when
we know they all first went to Ethiopia, that we understand.
Yeah.
And then from Ethiopia, they were supposed to come to
being
Kenya.
Distributed now to the other countries.
Now, that distribution network, something didn't quite happen as it should have, according to what we've been told.
This whole story and the way this investigation is happening, chap, today, come, respond, tell us, give us the documents.
But now, of interest, the governors, through their council, are actually referring to our Senate as extortionists.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the reference, of course, is this matter of the budget and the delays that have occasioned it.
Uh-huh.
But they're also saying, they're not giving details. At least this article that I'm reading does not give details. But they're saying that these fellows are extortionists. Now, when you...
Who are these?
Which fellows?
The committee in the Senate...
The Senate Committee or the National
Yes,
Assembly?
No.
The Senate.
Senate. It's not National Assembly.
Senate.
And it's the governors, through their council, who are blaming them and calling them extortionists. Saying these fellows are extortionists. And this business of calling people to actually come physically. They want virtual meetings.
It's against COVID, even COVID measures.
It's a shakedown.
The moment, yes. Let me just read. We hereby categorically state that governors will not bow to the extortionist nature of this county public account and investment Senate committee. You know what is implied here?
So sad, it's funny.
No, what is implied here is actually fairly heavy. Because they've actually accused...
Why are they saying they will not go? Because of COVID or because
the
of...
extortionists.
Because the committee is extortion.
Yes, essentially when you're called there is a shakedown. So they're saying you can shake us down virtually.
We don't want physical shakedown.
We are not going to be shaken down physically. But really, these aren't people who are using this word carelessly. What is it that has happened to them that has made them decide to actually refer to this matter in the manner that they're referring to it? It's not a light matter, is it?
No.
The unfortunate part of this story is that the governors are raising it just like that, just like a casual matter. Whereas you're basically saying that as 47 governors, as 47 heads of the subnational government, you are feeling like you're being extorted by an arm of government. And it can't just be, something that a statement that you just make and it goes like that, like this. You didn't say something major.
More to the point, this is not something that I think has arisen as a result of this matter of determining how the spoils that are supposed to the county should be divided. No. I think this is something that has happened before. And now with this new twist that they have, they've decided, no, enough is actually quite enough.
The Public Accounts and Investment Committee summons the governors all the time. We have received this report from the Auditor General and we want you to come and explain. And of course, that forms a very big part of a report that will go into the Senate and into the records. Hey. All right, it is 6:30. This is the situation. Some time for us to
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise.
You're listening to Spice FM. Traffic.
Right, so both lanes are blocked. Not much in traffic. Yesterday was an absolute mess. Get off there.
Spice FM, Malindi. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right.
So we want to thank everybody who is tuning in on the live streams, and this is Spice FM KE on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter, as well as www.spicefm.co.ke. Tuned in from Nyeri, this is Masibo Situma. Nyeri is in Bungoma. In Kabondo Kasipul, Susan Kanyoko is there. Dorcas Kimoto, Malindi tuned in Kamakawa. And she says she also loves Buster. Omoriki Vincent Onyeboke says, irregularity. Guys, you're my favorite. I can't go without listening to you. Otherwise, it's a bright Friday morning here in JK. Otherwise, Omoriki, karibu sana to the show. Vincent Bukacha, who's in Bomet County, karibu and continue listening. Gorio Pingo, you've started typing. I don't know where you said you wanted to say you were tuning in from, but everybody, welcome to the show. This is Friday. It's a happy Friday where CT Muga becomes CT Mugo. And the irregularity of the word.
Got it. Wow.
Yep. Okay, other headlines.
Top report shows only 6 tribes share top state jobs.
Oh, no.
That
What's
is
new?
the headline in the Standard. Daily Business put it even-
Business Daily.
It's that day, is it? Today is that day, isn't it? Okay.
Don't worry, Mugo. Go on.
Okay, thank you. Kikuyu Kalenjin dominate parastatal CEO jobs. Hey. Star. Kikuyu Kalenjin, Luya and Luo dominate public service jobs. Now, if you come to the Nation, you have to go beyond page 4 before that story even appears anywhere. What is of interest?
But it gets a full page in that page 4.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does. It does. It gets a lot of information. That is, as you correctly asked, surely what is new. What is new is in the details. There is a community called the Rendile. They have nobody in the top civil service job. None. Zero.
No, why?
Okay.
The Rendile.
Rendile. Okay. They are found in those areas around Marsabit. Okay. There's only one employee in top civil service from Degodia, Ogden, the Kenyan Asians, Samburu, and Swahili communities. One. Of these, one. Counties with only one employee in the top civil service are
What is top civil service?
top civil service, you cannot
Is it
get higher
PS?
than a minute. Yeah, no. I think it is CS, brother.
Yes, it's not civil service.
In this country.
You're a state officer, not a public officer. Civil service ni wale wako chini ya
PS. So PS ndio juu kabisa.
Ndio tops.
Who's the accounting officer?
Is the tops, the head of civil service.
Okay, who's the accounting officer in the ministry?
Is a PS.
Okay. So we go with PS. Okay, me I take it to CS. PS. Okay. The counties with only one top civil service, top. Hey. Okay. One employee.
One employee in that cadre.
Thank you. Okay. Tana River, Samburu, and Lamu. Okay. West Pokot, Kilifi, and Bomet have 2 workers.
But here we're looking at national government.
It's national government. I'm not counties, of course. They have come on. They are represented the counties.
Yeah.
All right.
Talk about national government. That's where it counts. You know, with all the devolution that we have, the truth of the matter is the national government still holds some heavy clout as to what happens. Well, truth of the matter. Now, so long as we look at this thing just as information and we don't politicize it, it is okay. But unfortunately, the issue of representation is something that this country and its citizenry take very seriously. In fact, it is of key importance that representation is seen for every top government job, whether it is in the parastatals, whether it is in straight national government, whether it's in the police service, whether it is, you name it. People watch keenly. And they will not just look and say it is so and so, it is so and so from
This area.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yes.
It seems like it's not a conversation that's about to disappear from anywhere anytime soon.
No, it isn't, but also of significance. If you look at the communities that they say dominate the civil service, you'll also find that they have the largest populations in the country. Yes. So numerically. But it's
But
not
then the same way we have this effort at trying to ensure that there's gender balance and affirmative action, I think there was that part of the Constitution that was hoping that we're going to have some affirmative action, talking about ensuring that there is regional balance in all government appointments and representation of everybody. It should be a push. It should be a push that a certain government will sit down and look and say, all right, so here we have Professor so-and-so and we have so-and-so who is not a professor. This person is highly qualified, but because of the balance, let's give this job to so-and-so.
I am sure there's a representation if you look at the boards, the composition of boards. This is a newspaper report. If you were to actually look at the report, that in its entirety, I'm sure there'll be details and you'll actually get to understand the composition of, as I said, some of the boards that are part and parcel of these parastatals. And you will find representation. So it isn't as though I think they've been ignored. But what this report is talking about and what the newspaper is highlighting is the very top position, like chairman of this particular commission.
Yeah.
Okay?
The leadership.
Yes, exactly. The very top leadership. That is what they're talking about. Not the representation at that level of leadership. No. But the top.
The top.
Yes.
And that's why I'm saying that at some point we may need to just get to that point and say, all right, even if we say the same way the president appointed youth to be chief administrative secretaries. So this is like immersive training. You need to learn how a ministry operates so that at some point you can also rise to the level.
Yes.
Do the same. Look at the Rendile. Look at the Burji, at the Gabra. Look at the Pokomo. Look at the Ilchamus. And look at who is qualified to some degree.
Actually,
elevate them and appoint them at a certain position, knowing that this is what we are going to do. We want you to train so that in 5-10 years' time, you shall rise to the top.
You correctly put it and said that this is normal, but the Senates have now demanded that this same breakdown, they want it at the lower or the junior civil servants. They want to understand that composition lower down so that you can actually say that the civil service has been represented fully in its entirety in this breakdown. So,
Voila. There you have it.
Data, information.
Yeah. Might just change. So there's anxiety as Obado ouster bid hots up. The County Assembly Minority Leader says they have already started the impeachment process. ODM insists Migori governor must leave office over shameful charges against him, but some residents are against the move. A showdown is looming. I like these words. In Migori County, as plans to impeach Governor Obado gather pace. Raila Odinga-led ODM party has insisted Obado, who is facing several charges, including claims of corruption, which saw a court bar him from accessing his office, must be kicked out. Already, there are claims of threats, coercion, and fear of violence as political temperatures in the country hit the roof over the governor's planned impeachment. Yesterday, some residents took to social media to criticize the latest developments and threatened mass protests to force ODM to rescind its decision. If the bid to kick out Obado fails, then it will be an embarrassment to the most popular party in the region, as it seeks to strengthen itself ahead of the 2022 election. Party chairman John Badi yesterday declared Obado had lost all honor and should resign. And I quote, "Only a leader who has lost respect for his constituents and has no conscience would want to continue staying in office with such shameful charges against him." He added, "We are aware the governor is trying to convene a cabinet meeting at his home, which means he is determined to continue hanging on to office and continue undermining his deputy, who should be taking over the management of the county under the circumstances."
What do you mean trying to convene? He is the governor. If he summons the ministers to his home,
He's not trying, he's
not
doing
trying.
This one is going to be interesting because
Showdown.
what is evident is Obado is not going to just simply lie down.
He's not taking this one lying down, absolutely not.
And when it comes to running the affairs of the county assembly, or the county government rather, there's already precedent set by Sonko. He is not accessing his office because the court ordered him not to, but he is running the affairs of the county. He attends presidential functions.
He does.
He
as a
meets
governor,
with
the NMS
with General
DG.
Badi. So
So Okoth Obado will do the same.
He will. And he's going to fight this one tooth and nail, just from all indications here that, he's got a following in his county. And the people, you say he should be impeached. His people are saying, excuse me, doesn't really charges.
We haven't
allegations,
complained.
it's
It is
okay.
our money.
The court has taken him,
Yes.
the state has taken him to court.
let
Let
it-
them take him. But as far as we are concerned, we're all right. So we also are not supporting this impeachment bid of yours.
But it would be interesting to know what percentage of the population is this that still supports Obado with this matter and says it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter that these are corruption allegations.
you know
It doesn't
the
matter.
if you read what has been presented in the media, the print media, up until the time when ODM made the announcement of the position they had taken in this matter, it was just one of those many cases where Obado has been taken to court. Okay, it isn't the first time that Mr. Obado has appeared in court. No, it is not. Now, in the other cases, there were one or two people who may have said one or two things, but you didn't hear the loud voices you're now hearing.
No.
No.
And just giving more details to this, Muhuru MCA Hevron Mahira, who is backing the ouster, is among those who claim they have received threats to their lives. There's a lot of intimidation going on, and it is not going to be easy. I have already received threats, and I have recorded a statement with the police. He recorded a statement at the Migori police station, and he said unnamed people were planning to attack him for supporting Obado's removal. Yesterday, some of the MCAs backing Obado's impeachment trooped to Kisumu to strategize. Those supporting the governor include the 7 MCAs elected as independent candidates. Interesting. Some Jubilee members are also backing Obado.
10.
I know.
And the number that is required in order to impeach him? Because this is an assembly which has how many MCAs? 57, I think. Yes,
55.
55.
All right.
And the number that they need to impeach him?
50% plus one.
You know, the Migori has that history. It isn't the first time that we've seen this sort of ups and down. There was a time, I'm not certain whether it was SDP or NDP. There were councillors within Migori who had to migrate very promptly to Tanzania.
Migrate. Okay. Yes.
In
To the neighboring country.
Not even county, country, in the previous century. Because they had a somewhat different view from the party that held sway in that particular region at that particular point in time. Yes.
NDP, maybe.
I think so, but I need to get my facts right. But what is of interest, remember, even when Obado got elected the first time, he spent a lot of time in court fighting that. He's a man who seems to have been fighting at every phase of his life.
Yeah.
You get elected, you're in court. That court case went on for the longest time. He won the court case.
This is a petition.
Yes, he did. Okay. And there have been others. Of all the governors who come from that region, I don't think anyone has seen the inside of a courtroom more times.
More than a Obado.
Yes. Very soft-spoken person, but it is clear that he is combative. He's not even insulting or abusive if you listen to his conversations. But he's clear and he's resolute. Now, the party, ODM, are also clear and resolute that he must go. So, clearly, let's see this clash of wills and let's see how far it goes.
Let's see who's more resolute and who's more clear than the other. 12 minutes to 7 o'clock. Time for another quick break. We'll be back shortly.
.5 Spice FM, Kisumu. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Death of a national natural resource, and this is Lake Magadi. Experts are warning that Lake Magadi could be no more in just as few as 5 years from now because of siltation. And this siltation is happening because of a lot of human activity in the catchment area, which brings water into Lake Naivasha. And this catchment area is in Narok County. The Lake Magadi is in Kajiado County. Now, the areas that are these catchment areas are Nairagi, Ankare, Karmoto, Oloitip, Suswa, and Oldraport. They are contributing to siltation in the lake that is situated 640 meters above sea level. And these catchment areas are 2,000 meters above sea level. So that means that when there is all that flooding up there in Nairagi, Ankare, in those parts of Narok, it comes with all the silt downstream to Lake Magadi. So Lake Magadi is basically just being choked by mud, and yet what we want on Lake Magadi is not mud, is the soda ash. In 5 years' time, the stadium in Lake Magadi will be complete. That's what experts are saying. And basically, the National Environment and Complaints Committee went on a fact-finding mission on this degradation of the lake's 5 catchment areas in Narok County, And now they're asking the national government to engage the Ministry of Environment, Lands, Water and Roads, the Kenya Water Towers Agency, and the private sector to save this particular lake. You would think that some of these things would be obvious and taken up immediately. My second story is on page 3 of the Standard this morning, and it's the shock of teens who were secretly put on contraceptives. Now, this story is talking about girls in some parts of Nakuru County who apparently, without the knowledge of their parents, and we're talking about teenagers as young as 14, others 12 and 13, without the knowledge of their parents, have actually gone and procured contraceptive services, and they've gotten contraceptives, and this we are talking about what are they called? Implants.
Wow.
There's this particular girl whose implant was inserted on August 19th, 2020. It's due for removal in 2025. She could not comprehend the side effects of the contraception during an interview at their home, but she revealed that 2 weeks after the implant was inserted, she bled for 1 week, and so far, she has had no complications after the bleeding stopped. She's not alone. Adolescent girl as young as 14 in Nakuru's Kaptembo and Kwaronda slums are secretly being introduced to family planning methods without the knowledge of their parents. The school-going children are on 3-month injections and 5-year implants to control birth, and clinics and chemists are the ones that are doing this job. Private clinics and chemists and shops within the slums. The mother to a Form 2 girl in Nakuru High School is also in shock after learning that her daughter had an implant. Has my daughter secretly been having sex? Surely.
Well,
Why should she use contraceptives without notifying me?
How old is the daughter?
14, Form 2.
Well, this I think there's so many things that jump out here, but two things that jump out very clearly is that one, it was the case 10 years ago. It still is the case now that young people or anybody engaging in sex and sexual activities is more afraid of getting pregnant than they are of contracting any kind of sexually transmitted disease, which is very scary. Secondly, it's that sexual conversations are not being had between parents and their children. For the kind of shock that we see registering among parents now, that, are you kidding? Are you telling me, first of all, that my child is having sex, and why would they be, using contraception without telling me?
Yep.
Those are two things. I mean, it's just...
Sadly, there's failure somewhere in the community, in the society. Failure by government in terms of government social services, and failure in other community watchdog organs, such as the church and religious organizations and family setups. Because when you hear that these young girls, as young as 13, 14, are going to a private clinic, and an adult in this private clinic is actually administering this without any form of counseling or even being told this is what you expect. So the side effects of this are likely to be this is what's going to happen. You're likely to undergo heavy bleeding, or whatever. They don't get any of that.
According to that article, is it a research project, or is it just a standalone clinic that does family planning? What is it?
It's just clinics in the area. You know, these private clinics in the slum,
Yes.
small hospitals
Do they charge?
and chemists. Yes.
Yes. It's not free. It's not a free service.
You're just asking.
I know, but...
Same way. So the girls would go for the morning after pill. Is the same way they're going for the preventative pill or implant. So you go, enter this place, and you say, I want, and you're given the implant.
So it raises the question of, if they're charging, then it means these youngsters have the money.
Yes.
And where do they get the money from?
I think that's also the shock that registered with some of these parents, because first of all, like the implants, they don't come cheap.
Implants are not cheap.
They're not cheap, right? So where are they getting the money? Because we're talking about 13, 14-year-olds, right? Where are they getting the money to do this? Their parents obviously are not aware.
There's an adult somewhere
There's an adult somewhere who is paying. Or there's an adult somewhere who is giving money for other things as well. And this happens to be one of the expenses.
Yep. There's an adult somewhere who is paying for this. That's why the girl is thinking, well, I'm going to be participating in sexual activity. And that's why I need to do this. Because the adult maybe is on who said, no, we cannot continue until you get
protection.
Yeah.
And
This is in the slum areas, the low-income neighborhoods.
and this is becoming a problem because children are now at home.
Yep.
It's COVID.
It's exacerbated.
However,
Mhm.
I mean, even looking at studies that were done and reports that were conducted, even pre-COVID times, right? Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday across the country having been recorded as the days when pharmacists or pharmacies and chemists sold the highest numbers of emergency contraception, and they were selling this emergency contraception to girls between the ages of 15 and 20. Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday.
The emergency contraception.
Yeah.
Something also sticks out in this story. This story is focusing on Nakuru, and it's talking about women and young girls accessing reproductive health services. Nakuru, reproductive health. Susan Keheka, reproductive health bill. See that? This is just my
This is your connection.
my connection. Just
Or your
happening.
conjecture,
I'm
you've
just-
decided.
I'm liking, yeah,
But you know,
yeah.
it may, the story may be about Nakuru, but I think it ought to actually resonate, and we need to think about how far this story would resonate with other parts of the country.
Yep. Of course. I think this is a national issue. It's not only happening in Nakuru. And I'm just saying, at this time when the national conversation and debate is on what's been proposed in the reproductive health bill, where it talks about giving such people access to information and to these services, despite Susan Kehika coming and saying, you know what, my intention is to ensure that such things do not happen. But then those that are fighting the bill are saying this is what is going to allow it to happen. It raises something.
Should this not just be taught in school?
It should. At a very young age. Look, because just when they've been able to say from 6 years old, it sounds scary to some parents, but that's the time that children are becoming aware. That's the age when it is fully formed in a child's mind that there's a difference between boy and girl. It is at that time that you should begin to introduce this conversation to children.
True. Coming to the top of the hour, this is the Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation, broadcasting Nairobi, Mombasa, Kisumu, Nakuru, Eldoret, Nyeri, and Malindi, as well as online. It's now 7 o'clock. Keep it right here. In the next hour, we speak to Dr. Ouko.
Spice up your life. Spice FM, Nakuru.
Okay, so traffic is not causing so much of a headache this morning. It's clear on Mombasa Road, and it's looking really good all the way from the SGR towards Cabanas. Just a slight hold up at the junctions there, but then you are all right. Langata Road, then using the bypass, getting to Mombasa Road also will take you just mere minutes. So it's looking very good this morning. We had looked at Ngong Road coming into the CBD via the City Mortuary roundabout, either getting to Valley Road or coming down Ngong Road towards Community. Traffic is flowing very well. Let's take a look at Thika Road right now, getting into the CBD via the Globe Cinema overpass, or then using Forest Road. You will be fine too. Coming out of Westlands, a little bit of a hold up as you get towards the roundabout, and then coming through Chiromo, or then going towards Museum Hill. Also very good. Hopefully, this will be a good Friday as far as traffic is concerned. We're going to hold our breath just a little bit and let us know when we can let that out. Spice FM KE on Twitter. That's how you can get in touch. In case anything does jump out at you, let us know. But for now, guys, looking good in most parts.
This is the Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Ouko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latin, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
7. It's a Situation Room, is Kenya's biggest conversation. 94.4 in Nairobi, Mombasa 87.9, Malindi 97.7, Nyeri 90.9, 96.7 in Eldoret, Nakuru 96.0, Kisumu 102.5. www.spicefm.co.ke and SpiceFM KE, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. We need to talk about now this office. It's a constitutional office, the office of the Auditor General of the Republic of Kenya. What is the job of this office, City?
I would have happily answered that question if I didn't know that we have with us Dr. Ouko.
No, before the marking scheme comes,
Yes.
let's get your understanding.
Well, very simply, it's supposed to audit. Simply tell you that given that there was some money that was allocated for expenditure, did it meet the threshold for what it was purposed for? And if it didn't, what happened to it? And all they do is they tell you the state of affairs of how that money, should we say, traveled. It's auditing. That's it.
So it's in that profession of auditing,
Yes, that's what they do.
coming to see after the fact.
Yes, there are rules and regulations that are supposed to govern this entire exercise. And so it's not as though it's money given to you to do with as you see fit. No. Now, part of the things that I think that office would do is to try and ensure, well, to determine if you actually played by the rules.
So with the new constitution, the Office of Auditor General was strengthened, and it was made independent of any control or influence by any arm of government. And we had the first person who took over this job. This is Dr. Edward Ouko, and he, in fact, we poached him. As a country, poached him from very colorful international job and asked him to come and serve the people of the Republic of Kenya, which he so loves. And he accepted. He came and he took up the job, right? And this is serving as Auditor General with a secure tenure. And then after that, it's non-renewable. You exit, go look for something else to do. During that time, however, you have to know that you're going to be dealing with a government that has spent the money. Because the spender of the money is the government.
Yes.
And there are questions that you're going to be asking that people don't want to answer. And there are reports that you're going to produce that because of the insufficient response that you were given, you're going to point out that I asked and I did not get the sufficient response. Fire. Anyway, let's hear how the man survived this job. Good morning, Dr. Ouko.
Good morning. Is that Eric? Or
Yes, it is Eric.
Eric, thank you very much.
Yep. So this is Eric.
I am not a great, first of all, I'm not a particular for title. So Mr. would be, I like being fair and simple.
Okay.
So,
I'll just call you
Mr.
Eddie.
Eddie.
Okay. So the other gentleman in the studio is a man who was previously known as C.T. Muga, but for purposes of this Friday, he is Mogo.
It's Mugo, not Muga.
Yeah. And then the lady is Ndu Ouko.
Ndu.
Yes. So
Yeah, I think Ndu would have just put another U, then it would be Ouko.
There you go. Eddie, you had a very interesting tenure as the first Auditor General under this new constitution. First, there were very many things. The new constitution came up with a new structure of government. The new constitution came up with more powers and expectations for the Office of Auditor General. When you were taking up the job, did you expect it to be how you found it by the time you were leaving this job?
When I was coming to take up the job, I came with a lot of excitement, given that I was coming into a job at the backdrop of a new constitution, and which was hailed to be one of the most progressive constitutions in Africa, if not the world. So there was a lot of excitement, and I really looked forward to the job. Now, as to the situation on the ground when I came, things were slightly different in various ways. First of all, was the issue of resources, the budget of the office, vis-a-vis the expectation of the new dispensation, which, as you know, made Kenya to be a country of literally 48 governments. That meaning the national government, which I would call the mother government, and some 47 other county governments, which were, by all intents and purposes, fairly independent but interdependent.
Right.
So that was first the major thing, and that meant that it was not the same office, or it was completely, like you say, a new office, which I had to come into. In other words, with a clean slate. So there was nothing in legacy terms that one would have said relied on, except for the fact that the resources were very meager. And the staff also have been there for many years. A lot of staff turnover. There was not much staff turnover. So you had people with 30 years service, 20 years service. There were very low level of youth element in the system.
Was that a good thing or a bad thing?
Well, that was, it meant that the challenge became more interesting and more challenging because to fight, the immediate fight is for resources, the immediate fight was how are you going to get these people to, the body of the staff to see themselves in the aspirations of Kenyans under the new dispensation.
So what did you know that it was, Eddie, as this started and as the work began? What was it then that you were tasked to do for government?
What I was tasked to do for the government was basically me to interpret the constitutional basis mandate, which is under the Article 229 of the Constitution, for me to interpret what really were the aspirations of Kenyans in that article. In that article, the Kenyans said, although in written terms, say you shall audit all, basically where the resources of government. And that means the mother government, all the resources therein, and the 47 other governments, which were the counties, and the resources therein. Now, when and any other place, such as the political parties, where there's a lot of the public money goes into, the judiciary, which is not a government, but which is fairly independent arm, and any other area where there could be substantial public resources. Basically, audit where there were public resources.
as
Go ahead.
okay,
Go ahead.
so as you began this, what then did you face in terms of challenges, in terms of setbacks, when you began to actually show what was spent? When you began to actually show what was spent, what came up that would see that it would present itself as a challenge in terms of government spend?
I think the challenge was in the scope of the work or the scope of the mandate, which was quite different from what has been there. As you know, in the past, Kenya was governed in a unitary system. In other words, there's only one government. And in the new dispensation, Kenyans broke away completely from that unitary system. They didn't want to be controlled from source up there, right down up to the top. And that's where we came into the government with that 47 counties. And that meant that the resources had to be used in a manner that it delivers to Wanjiku. Because what then became now important is not the spending, how the money was decided to be spent up, but whether these resources were delivering the services which Wanjiku anticipated in the Constitution.
And were they?
Now, that's the point. The point is this, is the challenge came in because the resources were now being devolved. Because for delivery, you must send the resources to where the services has to be delivered. So that meant that the auditor was going to be, the type of auditor Wanjiku required was quite different from the one which was there before, which was perhaps concentrating very much on government expenditure control at one point. But now this auditor had to be content with resources which are devolved and are meant to be followed and audited up to where it's supposed to have changed the lives of the citizens.
Now, when you took over that office and understood the enormity of the task before you, did you have the requisite resources that would guarantee that your duties would be carried out as you ought to?
Let me tell you, when I took over, let me put in figure terms, because Kenya was talking about billions then, billions of the budget. The budget were in billions. And the billions which you're talking about is the Kenya bill were maybe just hitting what's called a trillion. And the budget of the office was extremely meager. In terms of what I found is the office budget was just slightly under $1 billion. And that was about 900 and something 80. Now, when I sat down and looked at the scope and the mandate and the requirement and the way the resources were going to be devolved, that became the most immediate challenge. The resources were, of course, are never, enough. But in this case, it was just simply an office which perhaps was neglected in terms of resources. So that was a major challenge. Then the second one, as I've told you, was the need to bring the staff level to the challenge which was required in the mandate. At that stage, the staff were about, say, just under 1,900. And when you look at the expanse of the expenditure being devolved, and one is required to follow that resources up to where it hits the ground, that is at the county level. This became the second challenge, the staffing of the office. So, I mean, this was very basic. One would have hoped to have gone to a office where at least resources were adequate to the task, and the staff were, in terms of number and quality, were adequate to the aspirations of Kenya.
So, are you saying that there was a need to even for you to devolve the functions of your office as well, if you were to meet the challenge?
That was that was an obvious challenge, because you could not audit resources which have gone to Mandera, right?
From Nairobi.
In Nairobi, without you being there. And what really it meant is it was an immediate challenge, because the people were clamoring. And as you know, as we now come 2013, the county started being operational immediately. And there were a lot of audit risks which one could foresee in the way, first of all, a big bang revolution was brought about, and the challenges of audit it came with. Yeah.
Let's take a break, Eddie Ouko, former Auditor General. We want to take a break, take a look at the weather, and then we continue this conversation, understanding the job of the Auditor General, and also just getting from, today we said we have brought the horse, and we want to get from the horse's mouth, or the challenges of the Office of the Auditor General, and also the successes. And there are some proposals that you've given to the BBI task force on what you think ought to happen to strengthen this office and to make it more efficient. We'll hear about that. It's 18 minutes after 7. This is the Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation.
The weather with Spice.
All right, at 11 degrees, we're looking at partly cloudy conditions in Nairobi. A chance of rain later, but that's one we're just going to have to wait and see. Taking a look into Nakuru, it's 14 degrees and partly cloudy conditions. Partly cloudy in Nyeri as well at 13. As we go into Kisumu then, it's sunny conditions at 18. A chance of rain later. And Kakamega also looks at rainy conditions in the afternoon, where it's currently standing at 16 degrees and partly cloudy. Mombasa is partly cloudy as well at 23. We'll go to a high of 30 today. A little bit warmer in Malindi at 24. Partly cloudy conditions and a chance of rain into the weekend as well. All right, let's look into Kampala. Warming up ever so slightly, 21 degrees and partly cloudy. We'll go to a high of 27 and thunderstorms forecasted for the afternoon. The fog is coming on to Dar es Salaam, 26 degrees currently. We'll go to a high of 31 and come down to lows of 25. Going into Johannesburg, we're at 11 degrees now. Sunny conditions throughout today, partly cloudy conditions in the afternoon. We'll go to a high of 21 and lows of 9. And finally, for now, in Lagos, 25 degrees and partly cloudy conditions, and going into a wet weekend, intermittent rains throughout the day with highs of 29 and lows of 21.
Sugar and spice and everything nice, everything nice. Spice FM.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM.
After 7 o'clock, this is Kenya's biggest conversation, the Situation Room. In the room this and every morning is Eric Latif, C.T. Mugo and Nduoko. And on the line is Edward Ouko. He's a former Auditor General of the Republic. Eddie, before we went to the break, you were telling us about the challenges of now the devolution coming into effect, an underfunded office, under-resourced office of Auditor General. Now, let's look at the politics of it. When you started your first audit around the country, across the country, in the 47 county governments and the national government, did you get the support, the political support that you required?
It really, at that time, I'd anticipated that to be there. But it's only natural that people don't like to be told, or seemingly being criticized on the usage or management. And therefore, the support necessarily one should not have expected. And I was not surprised when, of course, there were resistances in various areas.
Did it hamper the production of the first report, for instance?
Where the first report came with a lot of misunderstanding, a lot of denial, self-denial, and it's the misunderstanding which then also made it worse, because people then politicized what were purely professional issues. And that was very important. That is something which I was to see and live with for quite a while, especially come 2013, when we now had another new government, and which now started releasing the constitution as a government. There was a serious misunderstanding of the function of the auditor, or in other words, the oath which the auditor took to audit with responsibility, fearlessness, and with no favor. That became one which had to be fought as we now form the new government.
Was it genuine misunderstanding, as in lack of understanding or awareness of what an auditor is supposed to do, or was it just political pushback?
But there was an element of lack of understanding of the function, or the function had never been felt to be one which was threatening. But now it appears to be one which was threatening. So there was that fear, and also simply not understanding the primordial role played by the office of the Auditor General. Let me put it this way. Kenya would not be a functioning state, or being seen in the eyes of the International League of Nations as a functioning state, much as you talk of the three arms of government. But we cannot do without the Auditor General. That would not be seen to be a functioning state.
What were the expectations, whether they be of individuals? What were the expectations vis-a-vis the oath that was taken by you as the Auditor General?
My expectations?
No, the expectations of other people who then brought up about this challenge. What were their expectations as opposed to what you knew you were supposed to be doing?
The other people really, this is what I is my personal opinion. It's not maybe what they were really doing. They expected a more forgiving and alignment to what their political leanings were. Yeah.
If I hear you right, you're saying...
But then that is simply against the ethos of the office, such an office, the independence and the constitutional requirement or my constitutional duty.
So this pushback that you received, is this something that you would consider normal for such an office of as yours, or was this one, in your case, would you consider it to have been unique?
Certain amount of pushback is healthy. It develops the office, or it also challenges the auditor to question how he or she is approaching the work. But in this case, there was an element more of politics and being branded at that stage as being influenced by the opposition or working for the opposition. Do you see that is not a pushback? That is not a proper pushback which you'd expect in any system, even developed system. Auditors should expect some pushback. But when now you are labeled and identified as being an opposition, then one wonders where the country was going.
Eddie, I'm curious as to what it was that would have been reported, or what it was that comes out in some of these audited reports that would then invite this label as being in opposition of government. What exactly was it? Was it that there were national funds that could not be accounted for, not used as they should have been? What would it be that would invite such a label?
Well, because you are auditing an elected government, a government which was elected with massive vote, and in a way, at that time, those who were in Kenya, people were talking of tyranny of numbers, and therefore, it's a government which came with full authority and all that, and what it is they were now ready to spend, seemingly for to meet their political whatever
manifesto.
Whatever. And here you are, somebody who's telling you that you could not account for so much money, could not account for this, misuse of this, and so forth. Those were not news which in that environment was welcome.
Let's take an example. Eurobond. There was serious pushback and labeling of Ouko as an agent of the opposition. Just take us through that for those who may have missed it.
I don't know how Eurobond became being labeled position, but I think it was what at that time, at the heat of the moment, what the government anticipated, expected, that they've raised the Eurobond today, and in the next day, the auditor comes to tell the Kenyans that the Eurobond is here. The Eurobond has been well used. Now, do you see an impossibility there?
Yeah.
There is no way the Eurobond is raised today, and then in a week, in the heat of the moment, they say we want the auditor has to, even if I were to audit at that time, what I would only audit is to answer that the Eurobond came in.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if I were to answer the Eurobond in totality, this is a matter of a year and a half. Because I had to see it came in and then it is spent, how it was spent.
Yeah.
Because that's the most important thing.
Yeah.
It's not the fact that it came in. Are we together?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, and that the fact that I did not pronounce myself in the way they wanted, at the time they wanted, that brought all the politics. But frankly, as the professional that I am, I was still going to pronounce myself the next day that the Eurobond has been well used.
Give a clean bill of health, so to speak.
Yeah, at that time. The whole idea was, what was the auditor saying? But there's no way the auditor, a professional auditor, can pronounce itself on such a big amount of money.
Going with the
Within 2
same,
months, 3 months, without knowing where, following then the trail for
The
the
trail.
Eurobond was ready to actually go into certain development or other certain expenditure. So before you do that, you got to let the system now do the procurement, to see the project started, identify it with a project, and that there's a drag. It's something which would take, auditor would have to look at this thing almost for a year before you can give a whole holistic opinion or point of view.
I have a burning question before we go to the break. And this is just off the back of this particular experience, for example, with the raising of the Eurobond and following its expenditure. Looking at what is now the big scandal of the day, and this is how the COVID-19 funds have been spent and where they've gone to. Is it possible for the Auditor General, because there have been demands and questions, that the Auditor General conducts an audit and tells us whether this money has been properly spent? Is it possible for the Auditor General to do this within 30 days?
I think that would be, it would require the Office of the Audit to bring on massive number of staff, okay, to work wholly on that COVID. That's where it would be possible. In other words, you put about 100 staff. But that's not possible because this staff, you can't get 100 staff there waiting at any point in time to be used to audit the Eurobond, to audit the COVID within 30 days.
So realistically, how long would it take for the Office of Auditor General to tell us what happened with COVID-19 funds?
I think you are talking about 2 months. If the audit started today. But that also to be premised on the fact or on the expectation that the documentation is going to be available and that the people are also going to be assisting.
Forthcoming with information.
Available.
And cooperating.
And cooperating.
Let's take a break.
When you take all these facts into account, I see, a period of about 60 days.
Let's take a break again and see what's happening on the roads, and then we continue this conversation. We are speaking with Edward Ouko. He's the former Auditor General. If you've got any question that you'd like to ask him, you can post the question on our social media handles, Spice FM KE on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram. Good morning, 25 to 8.
Traffic.
Okay, nothing more jumping out at us today. It looks like it's actually not bad. Okay, let's look at the Thika Superhighway. Not much coming into the city, and you will be fine. Traffic is not causing any trouble there. Mombasa Road, we have the normal hold up right around the SGR towards the airport turnoff. However, it's not too bad and traffic is not piling up as we would expect at this time. So it looks like it's a good Friday. Heading out of the city, however, in the direction of Limuru and such, we have some build-up of traffic, but it's nothing too terrible. So it looks like a good day as far as traffic is concerned, unless we're not aware of what's going on in your neck of the woods. Let us know. Spice FM KE. That's how you can reach us on Twitter, just in case you are held up or you have an alternate route for somebody to use.
87.9 Spice FM, Mombasa. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Auditor General Edward Ouko.
Right, so now, Eddie, as we continue to look at how you carried out these duties in the country, and then obviously dealing with some pushback when it came to this, do you see a situation whereby after budget still there is money that is unspent, and what happens to those funds that are unspent by the government after a fiscal year?
The budget is never enough for the requirements of some of the what the ministries have to do. So having a budget, there's obviously you have been given a budget, but you cannot absorb it. That's what you mean the budget unspent.
Mm-hmm.
So what it is that we have to question the whole budgeting process.
Yeah.
In the sense that when people are negotiating for resources, there has to be a report, I would say, of the Auditor General on that particular ministry also brought to table, which should be telling those negotiating that this ministry is looking for more resources, but they could not absorb even the
previous resource.
The previous one. So that's how you then have this unspent issue coming in.
But what causes this lack of absorption?
I just say, look, that can only come in if as you know, the budget we when it is being discussed, or the day of the budget in Parliament is really pomp day with the celebrations and all that. Everybody's very excited, is looking for what they are going to get, what the secretary or the CS treasury is going to give them and all that. That's good. But perhaps we must now look at this thing in the proper context. There should be, before even we get to that, the Auditor General, maybe by March, should have come to that same podium, the Parliament, and told the Parliament line by line what the audit issues were and what they said. People then can see the problem of absorption or the problem of misuse and management. So those should be very clear before even we go into the budgeting cycle or negotiation for resources. So that handles in a way what there is never a budget unspent. Is the budget not absorbed?
This not absorbed.
Why is it not absorbed?
Yeah.
Yet you have your program the year before when you're looking for that budget, and you are fighting in tooth and nail to have that money.
Why don't they absorb it? From your experience, from auditing them, what is it that makes a department not be able to absorb that money?
Well, obviously, sometimes when you throw a lot of money to a ministry, they won't absorb it. So that's one. In other words, but that's misallocation of resources, because we haven't really identified where the needs are properly. So that's one. The other one is the planning for doing a budget and you must have prepared your project early in the year, such that when it comes 1st of July, the money comes and you put into use immediately. Then you have a chance of using that money throughout the year, and perhaps then start even be looking for more because you need money because you are performing. But if that process of planning and management is not proper, obviously you end up with first of all, you start absorbing this money, almost by December.
Yeah.
It's when you are ready with your project. And obviously, by the time you come to June, 6 months, you've only have not, there's nothing which Treasury can help you with. Treasury will be asking what, we have, well, they don't ask you, they have money for you, but they'll take it away or sometimes they allocate it under supplementary.
So are you saying the reason why we see all of
the
this?
Office of the Auditor General, we were always using our money in time.
Yeah.
I asked for my development money to build, say, offices, and I did them within 18 months and within the budget.
Mr. Ouko, are we saying that this money that comes from the exchequer always arrives on time?
There is double responsibility here.
Yes.
There is the double responsibility of the ministry to make sure that they plan well ahead to absorb the money. But then there is the other responsibility of the exchequer releases, which then go through a system which is also fairly bureaucratic.
So are you saying that a lot of the problems that we see with absorption, with unspent budget, is because of poor planning across ministries, across the country?
I dare say there is a good element of that.
Speaking to some of the officers, though, in the departments, they tell you that because you are not guaranteed, if I ask for 100 million shillings, I am going to be given 100 million shillings. I may actually just get like 30% of that. They are also caught in that uncertainty. So even when they are making their own plans, they make plans, maybe their plans are for 100 million shillings, and they end up getting 30 million shillings. So there is a whole issue of now trying to see, so the money that has come vis-a-vis the plans that we had, how do we then reallocate some of these resources? So they are then caught up in that should I call a whirlwind? Because what they had initially planned to do vis-a-vis the money that has come, vis-a-vis the explanation as to why you are getting just a small percentage of what you are hoping to get, affects their operations.
Yes, we must now go to the budgeting process again, because at the budgeting process there's a lot of negotiations. And a lot of, give and take, and, you are denied. In fact, in every case, nobody gets what they want. So when you are negotiating for this, you as the manager, you must know that there will be the case, okay, it will be the two issues, that you budgeted for something which you'll absorb, one. But then your project and your request for exchequer must also bear in mind that the other side, the Treasury has to raise, that money has to come in from tax for them then to disperse to you. So, the cash flow coming in sometimes puts the Treasury at a point where they cannot meet everything. So they'll meet those who are most ready.
Okay.
Yeah, so it is, you have to be ready. Okay, even me, I said I've built offices within the time. But if you know how much I had to be on the ground personally to roll my sleeves to follow and supervise and, ensure that the contractors bring in their bills in time, their certificates in time, so that I can then put my request early enough, such that when it comes, the treasury, the money, the little I've given, I'll pay out immediately, and the work will continue. So there is that element.
Mr. Ouko, let me ask this question. Is there any advisory role that the Office of the Auditor General has? Let me explain why I'm asking the question. One of the things that constantly confronts us when we look at the finances being managed in the counties is what we're discussing here. Somehow there's an absence of absorption, misappropriation, and sometimes I wonder, is it that the people who are put at the helm and who are supposed to look after these funds, is it that they don't have the capability? Is it that they don't have the training? And now, since the Auditor General's job is to ensure that certain procedures are followed, that the monies are utilized as they ought to, beyond just auditing, does auditing also involve helping them understand what their roles ought to be?
You're quite right. You know, at the beginning of when you explained to the people, you mentioned the issue of after fact. The auditing is now changing, it's moving, especially now as we talk of the impact. What did the money do on the ground? We need the auditor now. You know, the after fact is if at all the systems were working properly, the people were managing well, and you had, leveraging on IT, controls are there. The issue of the amount recording and all that would be out of the issue. It would not be the day-to-day concern of the auditor. Because that would have been now, and that's the ensuing situation in more developed countries. So the auditor now looks onto more issues of performance, the effectiveness, the economy, and whether this money has delivered to the people or the impact. So that means that the reports are now more recommending forward, recommendations to be put into place to be able then to ensure that efficiencies and all that and effectiveness are going to be ingrained in the management. And therefore, that means that the audit is now, if at all before, it was doing 80% of its time looking at the issues which we are dealing with today, the issue of misappropriation, the issues of misuse, the issues of that. That should have been taken care of by the systems being properly run. So that there is now more a division of not 80-20, but it is 60-40. And in the long run, it is going to be the other way, 60 effectiveness and performance than the recording, which is the 40. So advisory is where a new auditor should be of use to the system. And therefore, these after fact issues.
When you did play an advisory role, what were you met with? I mean, because I can't imagine, like you had said earlier, that if you basically said that the monies that were being used did not go to the people as they should have been, I can't imagine that anybody would have been happy with that kind of report. How then would you meet any kind of challenge that came to you? Or is it just a matter of, look, this is the report that I have given, this is what I have said, this is what I have seen, and we need to improve moving forward?
Let me just frame that's not a question, but your thoughts. What I said, the auditor should now going to be more performing, asking whether the money was effectively used. Or whether it made a change to the ordinary business. And that means that the interrogation of the report at the parliament level has also been looked at. Hitherto, the parliament is just looking at what has been spent. And that's what the Auditor General has now been, these are the accounts, and these are the more after-fact issues. So when they're interrogating, okay, the interrogation should be there, but what should be also important, there are other reports which the auditor has done, as I told you, on the performance, which are forward-looking and which are lessons learning, which the parliament does not properly give that interrogative seriousness. Well, and we have that. That's, my disappointment is that they concentrate on more the appropriation, which is what you call the Parliamentary Accounts Committee.
Yeah.
There are other reports, in Parliament you have other committees. You have health committee, education committee, and so forth, which we have done reports, which they should be interrogated. For instance, when I left, they've done a big report on the issue of the blood bank. But this cannot be interrogated by the Parliamentary Accounts Committee. It has to be interrogated by the Health Committee, wherein they call the people and they call other experts to opine also on what the auditor is saying in terms of performance of that institution. So this is the point. The point is that in the future we should go more towards that.
Yeah. Were you a friend or foe of government, Eddie?
Yes.
Were you a friend or were you a foe of government?
I think I was a mixture of those, depending on the report, because every report had 50% people happy and 50% people were unhappy.
Yeah.
Eddie, in your previous job, before you took over the job of the Auditor General, I believe you were an auditor as well. How different was that experience from this one of being the Auditor General?
I was the Auditor General of the African Development Bank for so many years, 24 years at the bank. And there you also had what you call the politics of the international politics. So that some reports would be challenged by some constituencies because it's hitting them hard. Other reports would be welcomed by the board. But then the problem was the civility and the professionalism of that. Denial. There was never an issue of pushback, but the discussions were then proper and criticisms were being taken in, as opposed to this one, which I found extremely interesting and challenging, auditing in the Kenyan context or the African context, or the African government context.
Do you think it can get to a point where we see, it's interesting that you talked about the African government context, whereby you see other economies and an auditor general giving the reports and giving from an advisory role in terms of what government spending should look like and government spending reporting then after that should look like. Do you see a situation in Kenya whereby parties, if having done what they should, then would be accepting of the reports that came forth, and then the decision would be to do better or to keep lines tighter in the future? Do you see that kind of thing happening in Kenya? Throw in everything that's happening in the current situation.
No, that question is extremely interesting because it becomes on the political will and the executive support, both legislative support and executive support, and recognition and acceptance of the role of the Auditor General in this context. Really, an Auditor General should be as much used to the Parliament as he or she is to the President. But that depends on the politics of the day. So I'm seeing a future whereby, and depending on the constitution, whatever change is going to have in the BPI, where the president, there's a distinction between the head of state and head of government. Because in the system which operated, the president was the chief executive.
Yep.
And that made it untenable because president is also a human being. Any human being will be protected. So you get me, current situation becomes very difficult for the Auditor General. But that is not to say it cannot be corrected. It depends on the way the executive will protect the office. Because the office, the president does not manage the day-to-day running of the ministry.
Yeah.
He or she will lead somebody independent of its line management to tell him some things which he may not be told. But that requires that the auditor is supported in that independent role.
We want to thank you very much.
To answer you,
Yes.
I think things are improving.
There's light at the end of this tunnel. Thank you very much, Eddie Ouko, for speaking to us and for sharing, of course, your knowledge, your experience working with government, your recommendations for what we can do to improve our systems going forward. And before we let you go, we want you to hear today's proverb by C.T. Muga.
Milk and honey have different colors, but they share the same house peacefully.
That's what it should be, because our house is Kenya.
Yep.
There is the honey and there's the milk, the executive and the auditor. We have to learn to live together on making sure that we respect each other's constitutional mandate, and that we are all answering to the bigger house, which is the Kenyan citizenry.
Asante sana. Very well said. Have a good day.
And thank you very much. I think it's been a very interesting discussion, and you guys are much knowledgeable than I think.
More than you thought.
Be, I think.
Wow, thank you, Eddie.
Asante sana and have a great day.
Thank you, Titi, and thank you, Eric. It was a lovely morning, a lovely discussion.
Asante
Thank
sana.
you.
Thank you.
Keep it right here. The conversation continues in the Situation Room. This is Kenya's biggest conversation. Of course, we are broadcasting from Nairobi to Mombasa, Kisumu, Nakuru, Eldoret, Nyeri, Malindi, and worldwide on our digital platforms. In the next hour, we start looking at the impact of COVID-19. We have talked about this before, and we cannot stop talking about it because it's the reality of our times. COVID-19 has come. It has impacted heavily on the livelihoods of people, and we want to share this story with you today. Give us your experience. Good morning. It's 8 o'clock.
Sugar and spice and everything nice. Spice FM.
Spice up your life. 102.5 Spice FM, Kisumu.
So where we see some traffic this morning is at the workings of the expressway. Might cause a little bit of traffic on Uhuru Highway leading all the way to Westlands this morning. That's where we see a little bit of hold up, but it's not too bad. Getting into the CBD from Mombasa Road, Langata Road, coming off from Gong Road, coming out of Westlands and from the Thika Superhighway, not too terrible today, guys. Traffic is actually looking very good, unless I don't know. But, I mean, it looks good right now. A little bit of a hold up on Bagathi Way, but it won't take you too long to get out of that. Let us know what you see. Spice FM KE, that's how you can reach us on Twitter. Keep it moving this Friday.
This is the Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Ouko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latif, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is the Situation Room, the
So
only
listening
way to start
the
your
conversation
day.
by Ouko and looking at what the county governments were doing in 2013, looking at how the county governments are operating now in 2020, he's told us about that lack of proper understanding of what the Auditor General's office ought to be doing. Some of them are just thinking, you come in, you ask us questions, we tell you, and you believe. So what did you do with this money? Yeah, this one we built a hospital. You know, this one is very expensive. Cost us 300 million shillings. And you just write it down, and you take it like that, and you present a report saying this is what this particular county government did. But he says the job with the expectations of the Constitution is completely different. Do you think we have improved in terms of the understanding of, let's say, those in office and then the citizens?
Improved?
Do you think that has changed?
Is there
somewhat?
regard?
Is there a better understanding of the functions of the Office of Auditor General?
Must we actually understand the functions of the Office of the Auditor General? Why must we understand? I mean, as a lame person, what is my relationship with understanding the functions of the Auditor General's office?
I will tell you. So, for instance, if you look at the just scroll up on the My Posts column and do there. There's a question here from Hussein. He says the office is irrelevant because they cannot hold anyone accountable who has squandered the public funds in a governor's office. Daniel Osiemo Ondiere is asking, because some time ago, the Nyamira governor, Nyagarama, built a simple hospital gate, not hospital, I just said hospital gate at a cost of 7 million shillings. The report was out, but no action was taken. In this connection, what is the essence of the Office of the Auditor General? You see, the understanding with the population is, so you are there, you're supposed to come up with a report and show that there was misappropriation or misallocation, and you take action.
You know, that bit I think they get, but from what I'm hearing is that they feel that in addition to what we've said, he should also act as the DCI?
As the DPP and arrest.
Yes, and
And judiciary.
Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission and Judiciary.
And it's
All,
not his,
all rolled into one.
and that's not the job. That's not the mandate of that office. He can point it out. He can say, look, or he, or in this case, she now, can point it out and say there are irregularities here, 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 and here. In terms of my mandate constitutionally, I'm supposed to then make sure, or rather, see to it that the funds that are being sent out are actually to the benefit of people and the communities in the country. Now, if I see that certain money was spent or not spent in this case, and it actually did not translate to that, your job is not to prosecute. Your job is to point it out. Your job is to point it out.
Maybe, okay, now that we are looking at the realities of our constitution and things that are working, and should the Auditor General's office maybe given a bit of teeth? So beyond your report, if you actually find that there are serious questions, then
What sort of teeth did you have in mind, Eric?
you have. I was just thinking of when we spoke to the head of the National Construction Authority.
Yes.
Told us about the amendment that now give them teeth. So initially, what they do is they license and allow a building to come up. And if somebody has not adhered to the law, they just go and put an X, and they expect that somebody else is going to follow up and there's going to be punishment. But now they've got the mandate to actually impose fines and such other restrictions, including even degazetting or deregistering a contractor. You see, that then gives a bit more power and might to that office. So, for instance, in this particular case, if an Auditor General has gone and come up with a report that shows clearly there was direct misappropriation and misallocation of funds, even if we don't say that this Auditor General then takes the matter up as prosecution, but there's something that they can do in the interim as the EACC gets in there to start investigating. Or maybe the report should be compelling the EACC to take action.
Or suggesting that there's some kind of discrepancy here or irregularity that needs to then be investigated and putting that forward. As opposed to just reporting and saying, well, this is what I found, end of story.
Essentially, what
and
you're
advising.
saying, that they should have their own investigative wing, something that is akin to what the Anti-Corruption Commission has.
Or
Or
widen the scope of their mandate to then allow them take any kind of irregularity or discrepancy that they see to a body then who is tasked with such things.
Actually, there's nothing wrong with them having an investigative body, and even as a body that can actually carry out some of the functions.
yeah, some of the audit functions.
Related functions that may be criminal. There's nothing wrong with it, because essentially that would be giving them the sort of teeth, not only teeth, but given the specific expertise that is required of them, it would also mean that crimes or issues, misdeeds relating to that particular function would have actually, yes. Good thinking. Good thinking.
Could have asked him that. We'll ask him in future.
No, we don't have it, that is for sure, because everything
No, it's not
gets
there now.
everything
That's
No,
what
gets
his
shunted.
thoughts about
Yes.
something like that.
That would have been a good
Whether
thing.
it
yes.
extends it, whether it extends into, because I'm just looking at the questions that are coming in. People are asking about action, not asking about whether you are able to unearth irregularities. It's clearly you unearthed irregularities. Those reports are what forms the basis for the Public Accounts Committee to then summon people to answer, or the Senate Public Accounts Committee as well to ask the same kind of questions. But that's it. It's upon other bodies then to take action. And if they don't have the teeth, if they don't have the goodwill to pursue a certain matter, it just ends there. Even going into the issue of what you were saying, before we get into the whole budgeting, the negotiation phase of the budgeting process, getting the Auditor General should be a requirement.
Yeah, before.
So let's first of all hear, what did you do with the resources that were allocated to you in the last financial year? Were you able to absorb everything? If you're not able to absorb, if you're only able to absorb 60%, come and explain why.
Right.
You are only able to absorb 60%. And then that forms the basis for the next allocation of budget.
And then your budget lines then could actually change or could be altered based on that. And there's something else that he said was very interesting, that it was clear to them that there was a lack of understanding then when it came to some budgetary activities for people across counties, especially when devolution came into play. What was it that they were supposed to do? So by the time you have non-absorption of budget or unspent budget at the end of the day, it's not necessarily because, one of the reasons was that sometimes money came in late. However, then understanding of how budget then should be spent vis-a-vis what you allocated from the previous year. So, there's just so many things in play that it's not just, because the process is not just putting down lines. It's really taking into consideration what happened in the previous time.
There's something also interesting, I think, when you're talking about funds, non-expenditure, non-absorption. If there is money with the exchequer, if there's money with treasury, all right, and it's meant for some specific purpose, and you, the county or the intended recipient, do not meet certain requirements for actually accessing that money, it can be reported that you have not spent that money. But in reality, you actually never even got it in the first place. But it's money that is meant for spending.
But then, remember what he said, that his office was able to absorb almost everything that had been allocated to them.
My friend, if they couldn't absorb, would have had a problem.
There'd be differences. They would face the same challenges as all the other government organs.
Yes.
In terms of how soon the treasury releases money for your job. But he'd make sure that you and your contractor are well aligned, so that by the time the treasury is ready to release your money, you
You're
take
ready
it
to go.
immediately and you spend. So what we see is state departments and county governments not ready for the national treasury comes in. So the national treasury is looking at, so who looks ready to take up this money? So you take, because these other guys are not ready to even absorb the money. It's about how you're managing your own projects as you had budgeted for them?
That's why the issue of capacity was raised by myself. Because sometimes you can have someone who we are told has the qualifications, but qualifications here is not just the papers that indicate that you understand accounting or finance, but you also understand the constitutional requirements. Because if you don't align those two, then there'll be no shortage of issues that will come up. You may have spent the money but spent it wrongly. You may have spent the money but spent it in the wrong place, in the wrong manner. Or even in documenting your expenditure, you may get it wrong. You know, that matter that we're discussing about giving that particular office more teeth is still in my mind. And I was thinking of the US of A. Their department, which is equivalent of a Ministry of Finance, their ministry or the state office, they actually have agents whose job it is to look for such issues, meaning crimes related to matters pertaining to that office.
They're actually, tasked to watch out.
Yes, they are officers who, yes.
And then after that, investigation takes place.
Yes, officers who have the same capacity as those whom we have, for instance, in DCI. Yes. It would actually make the work easier, and it might even cut down on the time that these things take for it to even arrive at some resolution. Because if you think you have a report, you take it somewhere else. They have a chain of things that they're doing, so they have to fit it in. And also, remember,
And they have to digest your report.
because it's technical also.
Yep.
Yet, if you had people whose job it is to only do that, matters of corruption in this country have moved at the pace they're moving because we have an agency that does nothing else other than that. The issue of asset recovery has picked up pace because, again, we have an agency that does nothing but just that.
Just that.
Yes. It makes sense. It makes sense. There's logic behind that thinking. But what I find strange is, why is it then that it's not just with the government? If you visit your bank on a day that the auditors are there, everyone is jittery.
Yep.
Everyone.
Yeah, because even the slightest mistake is found.
No.
Even the slightest one. Because
An auditor is supposed to look for missteps. That's what they
mistakes.
and to ensure that procedure is followed.
It's the demeanor of these people. But have you ever dealt with accountants and auditors? You
I
have.
have.
Of course, you have.
I have.
the way they
Eish.
look, man.
No, it's the demeanor.
Not
I agree. It's like
smiling.
Men
It's-
in,
it's
men
like they're
and women in black.
It's like they're coming
to harass you.
just to
Yeah,
harass you.
it's like the Undertaker has made a visit to your office. Already you're scared.
They
Even if you've
assume
done everything
fraud.
right. It's like assuming that something is wrong
Assume
before they've
fraud
even looked at
unless
the books.
proven otherwise.
Yeah.
Guilty until proven innocent.
Yes.
That's why Eddie Ouko was the smiling auditor. There's a reason why people
Call him
were
the
like
smiling
the
auditor.
smiling auditor, because he was always smiling. Auditors don't usually have that demeanor. They don't.
But most significantly, for a long time, even before the new constitution, before his office was given the teeth of independence, auditor generals before him have had the same fate. All they do is report what they found. But my goodness, it's never received well.
Never. That's what was giving the public investments and public accounts committees, even in those early days, a lot of power because
Yes.
they were relying on the reports of the Auditor General.
That's what they actually went with.
Yes.
That's what they used to actually query and call the individuals whom they
Bring
felt
up
had something
issues
to
and
answer for.
some proper drama in Parliament in those days. 8:15, let's take a look at what's happening on the skies, the weather, and then we want to begin this conversation this morning, and this is the effect of COVID-19, Just speaking to very many people, they'll tell you what is happening, and you have to really, sit and spend some time with somebody before they open up and tell you, you know what, things are not good. You know what, I lost my job. It's been a struggle since then. I lost my job. I had little savings. I'm running out of my savings, or I ran out of my savings, or I didn't have any savings, or I had taken a couple of loans. I was servicing some loans. Yes, we were given some moratorium by our banks, but that was just for 3 months. We have gone way beyond the 3 months. The banks are now saying, all right, let's have the conversation. But I expected to have a conversation with no money. So you have a facility with the bank. You have, because of, also how we are as people are different. There are people who are able to immediately go and have a conversation with their banks, and there are those who just
Need a minute.
don't know what to do.
Yeah.
And the bank assumes, you're not talking to me, so therefore you must be having money. Boss, pesa yangu iko wapi? You don't do that twice, thrice. The next thing is you're hearing from the auctioneers. They're coming for you and they're asking, they're demanding that they want to auction you unless you pay up. So let's have that conversation. What really is happening? Kenyans are broke. To what extent are Kenyans broke? To what extent are we really suffering as a society? To what extent do you know of somebody who is going through a problem? Or if you are going a problem, let's just open up this morning, okay? And talk about this. 17 minutes after 8.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise.
You're listening to Spice FM. The weather with Spice FM.
14 degrees, we'll go to a high of 24 today. And yes, it looks like rain is in the offing for most parts of today, well into Saturday. Looking at Nyeri, 16 degrees and partly cloudy, highs of 23 and lows of 13. It's likely to be a wet afternoon here as well. Nakuru is partly cloudy at 16. It's warming up just a little bit. Again, here it'll be cooled down by the rains, highs of 23 and lows of 13. Eldoret is mostly cloudy at 14 degrees. We'll see highs of 20 and lows of 11, and showers expected here as well. It'll be wet in Kisumu this afternoon with 27 the high and lows of 19. Kakamega also will experience some rains with highs of 24 and lows of 14. It's mostly sunny in Mombasa, 24 degrees. We'll see highs of 28 and lows of 23. Malindi is mostly sunny at 24 degrees, highs of 28 and lows of 24. Looking to Kampala, where it's likely to be a wet afternoon as well, highs of 27 and lows of 18. There's a fog over Dar es Salaam, and it's going to go into showers later with highs of 29 and lows of 21. Mostly sunny conditions in Johannesburg at 12 degrees, highs of 25 and lows of 9. Lagos, the showers continue, and it'll be this way till Sunday, highs of 30 and lows of 24.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
So 20 minutes after 8. We all know somebody who's gone through something. We all know. I mean, besides this job that we do here, we also, just like very many other Kenyans, we also have other jobs that we do elsewhere, have other businesses that we run. And the impact of that in terms of you servicing your clients, many of the clients who, for example, have had issues with their own businesses. So it's reducing the scope of work that you have to offer, or reducing completely, or just being told, you know what, let's just cancel this contract for now. You cannot offer me the communication and marketing services that you are offering because I have shut down the business. Or you cannot, we cannot continue working under the same scope of work that you had because really I don't even have, I'm trying to manage the money that I have. I'm not having, my revenues have been impacted. And if you think about the very many people who either are running private business or who were employed and then they had to be followed, or those who were basically told, you know what, take some unpaid leave. We're gonna call you after some time. There are very many of those in the society, and those are talking amongst themselves with friends, and people are sharing. People are coming out to say this is what's happening. People who have been called by their landlords and have been told, you know, boss,
Can't do this.
we can't do this anymore. You've got to leave my house. All these are stories that we're hearing.
All these are truths that are occurring as we speak.
Yeah.
It may seem that we've been caught up in the whole talk of COVID without actually seeing the reality, as it were. We knew that this was the situation. We knew that this was going to happen, and we probably knew that it was going to get worse. Even as there are talks of opening up the economy, things returning to normal, businesses reopening once again, it is clear that there are some people who, for life, for them, has changed completely. I mean, let's look at the reality, guys. People have been thrown out of their homes. People who may have driven at some point are no longer able to fuel their cars. And it may sound like something that is for the movies, but this is the truth. This is the reality. This is what is going on right now. People can't eat in their homes the way in which they used to. In the supermarket, a week ago, I talked to an interesting gentleman. His name is Gigi, and he runs one of the supermarkets just here on Mombasa Road, runs one of the branches. And he is a very different kind of individual because he actually gets to know customers as they come in and do their shopping. He's the face of the supermarket, so everybody kind of knows who he is. And he said to me yesterday that, you know what, people that he would know who would come and do a certain amount of shopping, people are coming in and are struggling at the till. And by the time they have put together a few things that they think are going to be able to help them with their monthly supplies, many times, more than he has ever seen in the times that he has run this supermarket, people have to take things back to the shelves. People cannot afford to take what they used to take because they just do not have the money. And these are people who would ordinarily be able to afford it without even thinking twice. He said in the times that he has run that supermarket, he has actually never seen it this bad. This is a supermarket. This is a supermarket. One example of a place.
Real stories. Let's
Real stories.
talk another real story. Paul Mbai, we're opening up the phone lines. We'd like you to share your story. Let's talk about this because it's also important that people talk. Let's talk about this. Paul Mbai is joining us on the line. He's a tour guide. Paul got evicted from his house last month after the tourism sector was hit by COVID. Of course, we know what happened to the tourism and hospitality sector. COVID, hotels shut down, flights not coming in. So for very many people who are working in this sector, they got immediately affected. Paul, good morning.
Good morning.
How are you doing, Paul?
I'm doing well, although it's not well because I'm still on pandemic hold.
Yeah, life for you has basically just hit the pause button.
Yes, it has been so difficult that I reached a time that the landlord told me he don't need my money. I have to vacate his premises so that another person may take the house.
How many months had you gone without paying rent by the time the landlord decided to evict you?
Yeah, I was having a rent of I had 5 months.
5 months of arrears.
Yes.
Had you had a conversation with the landlord as these things were happening, as your job was impacted? Had you had a conversation with the landlord to maybe give you some sort of moratorium?
Yes, even the caretaker told me he has tried to talk to him, but he doesn't want. If you have more than 3 months, you have to vacate his premises. I tried to tell him that when the job will be back, I don't want to to go with his money, I have to pay him. So let me stay until the job comes. I give back your money. They say no. They gave me 7 days to vacate.
Who manages the home? Is it the landlord directly, or do they use intermediaries like property managers or agents?
We have the landlord himself, and then we have agents, and then we have a caretaker. We have three entities.
Levels. Mm-hmm.
Yes.
But now your direct point of contact is the caretaker.
Yes.
Did you have any access to the agent or the landlord?
No.
No direct access.
Yes.
So what did you do? I'm interested. What did you do? What happened after they had refused, and then they now said you needed to leave? Where did you go?
I talked to my sisters, who decided to pay for me a rent from Kawa. I was staying in Kawangware. I shifted from Kawangware to Kayole. Now I'm staying in Kayole. Even now, they are the ones who have paid this month because the job hasn't come yet. I've not resumed.
Okay. And are you waiting for that job back, or are you trying to look for another one?
That's my profession. And according to the situation now, many people doesn't have a job. We have many professionals now. The jobs are scarce. Now I have to wait because even if I want to start a business, I don't have a capital. Yeah.
Just thinking about that eviction and how it happened, were you allowed to live with your belongings from that house? Because we also hear of very many other instances where landlords actually come in and they weld the door, and you're expected to go and find somewhere else to live and leave everything inside.
We've read of stories where they welded the door with someone inside the house.
Someone inside the house, yes. What was the experience for you?
Yeah, on my side, because the caretaker has been, he knows me and he knows my character, because I'm not a person who does things without his knowledge. He told me that I've been told that you have to vacate. We were 3 people who were to vacate, they gave up 7 days. Now, he told me that what you have to do, you just vacate with your things, take your things and go. Because within 7 days, they'll come and throw everything outside the house.
Most houses that people rent have something called a deposit. How many months deposit did your house have?
I had 1 month deposit. Yeah, because when I enter, I paid 2 months.
Was that utilized in any way?
Or
were you given back your deposit?
Because I had 5 months now, there was nothing to claim.
Okay.
Paul, so what do you think? As you sit now today, as you wake up this morning, you are now living in Kayole, other friends and relatives are helping to foot your bills. What is it that is going through your mind? Where do you see a light at all? Is there any light at the end of this tunnel for you?
Yeah, I had my own company, tour company. Which I had joined the company known as safaribooking.com. And before the pandemic came, I had many clients who had booked, but they canceled because of the pandemic. Now, my hope is that when the job resumes, because I had been I had been decided to be employed by another company, which they have called me and told me that we have to prepare ourselves anytime we can resume the job. So I'm thinking that if God help me and I go back to back to job, then I try and push back my company so that I may assist many people who have problems.
Well, we can only be hopeful, Paul. Thank you very much for sharing your stories with us this morning.
Okay, thank
Thank
you.
you, Paul.
And all the best, Paul.
Okay, bye.
Hearing your stories this morning, 0719-012-600, or also on our social media platforms, Twitter, Spice FM KE, or Instagram, or YouTube, or Facebook as well. What is happening? I mean, why are Kenyans broken? What is it that we as a society can do? What can the government do? Is the government aware? Is the government listening to this? Is the government reacting to what is happening? Data coming quarterly after every few weeks from the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics that shows, the latest one was showing how many million people who have lost their jobs just within this period of COVID-19.
1.7.
1.7 million jobs gone. That is 1.7 million people who don't have a job. That means that people who've been impacted are even more than 1.7 million.
Because the 1.7 represent those who are actually working, but they also have dependents.
Yeah.
Yes.
Let's take a look at traffic. And as we do that, we'd like to hear your story, 0719-012-600. Hear the story and also start thinking of the solutions. And what is it that we expect? What do we expect our government to do? What do we expect the rest of our society to do? What can we do? What ideas can we come up with? 27 minutes to 9 o'clock. Good morning.
Spice FM. Nyeri. Spice FM. Spice up your life. Traffic.
Half hour. The traffic on Mombasa Road now has risen. It's crazy. We already talked about Uhuru Highway and the University Way roundabout. So there is massive traffic between the Nyayo Stadium roundabout and all the way towards the University Way roundabout. And we know that this is contributed to by the working of the expressway, and it's going to be like that for some time. So they've actually said that because of the workings on the expressway, you're going to expect heightened levels of traffic, and they're trying to make it as comfortable as possible. So we will see traffic around Cabanas, the next General Capital Center, all the way towards Kenyatta Avenue. And this is likely to be the case for a few weeks, apologizing for the inconvenience that may be caused as they endeavor to improve the existing infrastructure along the Mombasa to Nairobi highway. So this one we're going to have to expect for the next couple of weeks, guys. And it's already begun. Spice FM KE on Twitter. Talk to us where you might be stuck, and let's see if we can find an alternate route, or at least keep you happy while you wait.
Sugar and spice and everything nice. Spice FM.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM.
25 minutes to 9. Tony is on the line. Good morning, Tony.
Yeah, good morning, guys. How are you?
Good
We're well,
morning.
thank you. You're calling in from is it Ongata Rongai or is it from Rongai?
From Mungata Rongai.
All right.
Rongai.
Okay.
Okay, I've been listening to your show from actually very early in the morning, from 6 in the morning. Yeah, and it is. I would like to commend you guys first for what
Asante.
you're doing. No, yeah, this is very important. And now let me come into what the discussion of the moment. I was hearing about what Paul was saying, and it is very bad. There are more than 1 million Kenyans out there who are going exactly well. The same thing that is happening to Paul is what is happening to them. You see that you've stayed in a house for 3 or 4 months. Your landlord is there. They want the money. Maybe there's another tenant who wants to come in. You cannot pay. Your landlord come to you and tell you, you see now, if you cannot pay, I'm willing to let you go. just go. But if you can pay for the 4 months, you will pay later on if you have a job. But you see, some of these jobs, we are waiting on the government to allow things to resume. So you see that even as much as you're going with the 4 months arrears and you're waiting for things to open, then when the president talks, the thing is the same. 30 more days. 30 more days. You know, it's too much for the normal monarchy. There are people who cannot afford bread. There are people who cannot afford even a meal in a day.
Yeah.
It is quite unfortunate.
What is our way out of this, Tony? What would we need to do to get out of this? Because like you're saying, so the president comes and says, well, 30 more days of curfew, 30 more days of these restricted measures. And that uncertainty is adding onto the impact on people. What do we need to do to get out of this cycle?
The first thing, I would like to know the difference between what is happening in Kenya and what is happening in Tanzania. I've noticed that our artists are going to perform in Tanzania. Why? Why is it that we cannot come up with ways that can protect the livelihood of the normal Mwananchi and the livelihood of the big guy on top there? Because you see, normally, we look at it this way, that most of the guys who are suffering are people who don't have money, people who are poor. The higher niche, the higher class, the 5 or 10%, they're okay. They're okay. They know they can do this, they can do that. The government has to come up with a way that will shield its own people from what is happening everywhere. COVID is a disease that with proper care, proper protection, guys can learn how to deal with it.
Can I ask a question? It is actually true what you're saying, absolutely true, that those whose earning capacity is in the lower brackets have actually been hit hard. But are you saying that those who earn a little more have not been hit by COVID?
No. They've been hit hard. I'm saying there is the higher niche, the 5%. These are our leaders, the MPs, the governors, the higher 5%. Leave alone the middle class. The middle class are been hit already. They are selling things by the roadside. Someone goes to work, they have to pass by the market, buy some cabbages, pineapples, come and park by the roadside.
To sell, to get dinner.
The middle class have been hit already. Yeah, you see, the middle class and the poor people, they are in the same category. We have only 2 classes here. If you have money and if you don't.
Those we don't have.
Yeah. It's very simple. And the thing is that it is very unfortunate that this thing come in the middle of a pandemic. When you're listening to what these guys are talking about COVID, they're grilling Mutahi Kagwe, they're grilling the other guy from the director of KEMSA. It is like a script. Nothing is happening. How can they give it? Are you seeing anything there?
Not yet.
It is a script. Nothing is happening.
Tony,
and the
thank
normal
you.
guy down there.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your share, your views this morning, and also your experiences. And we ask you to continue listening. We are asking for your opinion, for your experience during this time. How has COVID-19 impacted you financially thus far? 0719-012-600, or also on our social media platforms, Spice FM KE on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. That's the question we're asking. We just want to have a conversation this morning, also asking, so what can we do? Den Trends on Twitter says, very broke.
It is.
That's just it.
Very
broke.
You get to the point where that people don't know. And I think that we have quite a lot of people also who are quiet about the suffering that we're going through. Across board, people did have to experience cuts in salary. And it was a time of grumbling and complaining that as it is, you are struggling. Then you get a salary cut because of COVID, and you ask yourself, what are you going to do? But then I'm looking at the other side of it, where at this point you're thanking your lucky stars because you even still have something that you can use. There are those for whom the entire source of livelihood was removed. And that's what I'm looking at now. How are they actually surviving?
Remember, one of the things that we also saw or we witnessed or were told about was that the moment we opened up the curfew laws and the travel restrictions, many people took their families to the rural areas.
Yeah.
Coping mechanism one. Meaning, the rural areas, you don't have to cope with the issue of paying rent. The normal expenses that you endure in town are not there. And it is, hopefully, basic sustenance as in just subsistence living is easier afforded in a rural setting. But in my mind, the most significant thing has been, yes, COVID has come with its economic hardships, unpredictable as they are, but it is the speed with which we have determined to change with the times. Let me explain what I mean. COVID has come with change. And in my mind, the biggest problem has not even been the things we mentioned. Just the rapid and drastic change and coping with just the thought of it. Because when someone anticipates that they will go back to the job they had, and chances are that particular industry has shut down, there is no job to go to.
Yep,
Really
true.
isn't.
So the thinking ought to be, what else can I do?
What else can I do?
But the shock related with the change prevents you from even thinking along
From
those
going
lines.
that. So let's take a couple of more callers because phone lines are basically just going all red. Fred in Nairobi. Good morning, Fred.
Good morning. How are you?
We're fine,
Fine,
thank
thank
you.
Good morning, thanks.
Yeah, how are you doing?
We are well, thank you.
How are you?
I'd like to fine. I'd like to take this opportunity to commend you guys. You're doing a great job,
Asante.
Thank you.
and I'm an ardent listener of your program every morning.
And it's the
And
first
today
time
I
that you're
decided-
calling in.
Yeah, this is the first time I've been calling in, but I've been listening for almost 1 year now.
Very good. Thank you very
Thank
much.
you very
Fred.
much for listening.
Now to my contribution.
Mhm.
I have been a hotelier for a while, and we were the first people who were hit by this coronavirus pandemic.
Yep.
Since March, I think the last time I went to duty was on March 20th.
Wow.
As a middle income earner, I'd had to face a lot of challenges, and mostly having my income just abruptly stopped.
Mm.
And as you understand, life must go on.
Yep.
It has really been devastating. First, the lockdown made it difficult for us to be able even to move. And then the lack of finances made it difficult for even us to be able to venture into new income
Yeah.
Ventures.
line or revenues or ventures.
Mm-hmm.
So having other things that required some payments, let's say like I had insurance covers, education covers for the family of the children,
Yeah.
that alone I was servicing. All this had to come to a halt. And it has been difficult because banks and insurance are calling you every day. And they have this bad habit of assigning like 10 people to call you on different times of the day. And you have to explain to them that you have not been on duty for this time. And then tomorrow another different person calls you with the same issue. And then you have to explain to them again. And then another person calls you. So it reaches a point where you even have to block the bank, to block the insurance.
Can I
because they
ask
don't
you a
understand.
question, sir?
Yes.
Have you written to the bank to explain your circumstances?
My discovery or my findings on whether you talk to bank or insurance, they have behaved very differently. I walked into my bank. Immediately I went out of employment and informed them that I'll not be able to service my loans because of this situation. They told me that they have rolled out a plan to cover all people who have been affected, which went for 3 months.
Yeah.
And then after 3 months, I still went and told them I'm still out of employment. Now they told me that they cannot extend for the next 3 months. If I have to pay some arrears that I had,
for me to qualify for another holiday.
What arrears were these? Were they previous arrears or were these arrears for the 3 months?
When it was arrears, it was a 1 month arrear. That 1 month arrear just came before we were dismissed from work because of So you can imagine when I got the payment for the month of April, I just had to offset what was very important, that is the house rent and the food, because there was this thing that we would go for a lockdown.
Yeah.
So everybody had to do shopping for at least 1 month or 2 months just in case there would be lockdown.
So the reality is, by the time you're going to the bank on the 4th month, you've already exhausted the resources that you even had that could have covered any arrears.
I had already exhausted everything. I even had to go to withdraw the savings I had for the family for emergency, just to buy food. The side hustles that I had depended also on the industry of the hospitality.
Yeah, it's in the hospitality sector.
And most people are told, work from home. So you can't even serve them tea in their offices because we are already working from home. Yes. So my general feeling is that the government is trying to do much, but the much is not affecting much. Sorry for using too much of much. But what I mean is
much of what you're saying.
It lays the emphasis nicely on the matter. Yes.
It's thanks, but my opinion is the way the government is trying to handle COVID-19, the impact is not on the poor. The impact is affecting only the rich and those who can be able to read from COVID-19. Because I listened to the guy who called earlier on, and what kind of frustration he has gone through.
Yeah.
What is the government doing about that? Nothing. So when you listen to these panels where Mtaikagwe is called, or this person who was in this COVID-19 billionaire scam, I ask myself again, how will this help me? I have watched, I can tell you, so many of these panels of investigation on scandals, but I can tell you, I have never seen one thing the light of the day as this is what was found, this is what the guilty people have to pay back, or this is a case that has been closed. If I said that this is just one of the Kamoror Dam, the Kenya Power, the oil scam,
it just joins the queue
scandal,
the very many other things.
It's just like a soap opera. So we are in this episode of COVID-19, and after this, we are going to have another one. How about us?
Very, 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 very valid points. Fred?
There's something I'd like to say on this matter of the debts that you owe to the bank and the insurance. I asked if you've written. These institutions do not really abide by what is spoken. You need to write to them. Actually write, and even probably with a reminder stating your position, and if you can't pay, telling them you can't pay. Why am I telling you this? Every time one of these 10 people call you, you will have a reference point, the letter that you have written.
Yes.
You want it documented.
So you've been documenting it.
I have done this, and I went to their offices. They gave me a form telling me that if you want to be served as per your request here, you have to complete the following forms. I have completed the forms, and they have given me a copy of the form. When I went to the bank, I wrote an email to them. Unfortunately, it's like when you speak to one agent of the bank, it is not a universal thing that somebody else can access. The reason why I'm saying this is that I can have a telephone communication with a bank agent, and before I make that communication, there's information telling me that this conversation is recorded.
Yep.
And then the next time I get a new person on board asking me the same question, I ask them refer to our previous communication because I would like to build from that. And they will tell me they are not aware of any previous communication with
Frustration all round.
So it sounds like when I speak to somebody from Spice FM or I speak to somebody from a bank, it's a personal thing. So when the next person comes, they just don't pick it from where we had
It's
our
not an
last
institutional
conversation.
conversation, it's a personal conversation.
Yeah, so it begins again. So you can imagine how frustrating it is to tell somebody, I've not been at work for March, I'm even looking for something to eat today. So I cannot pay what you're telling me to pay so that I get another holiday. Then they're just saying, but that is the policy of the bank.
Fred, thank you very much. Let's hear from other people as well. 0719-012-600. Share your experiences or also what is it that we can do going forward. Yegon, good morning.
Good morning, Eric, and the entire team.
Good morning.
Yes. My thought on COVID-19 is that COVID-19 came in. But it's the government whom they chose to create the COVID-19 pandemic. Because from the research, this COVID-19 is just like any other disease. In fact, we have another mostly diseases like cancer, which kills many people daily, more than what is being reported from the COVID-19. So if this COVID-19 really was a real thing that could clobber us, you can see the price of the goodies. 500 mils of Brookside milk still costs the same before pandemic, during pandemic, and even up to today. What is the price of buying tokens? The same price.
If not more expensive.
It is not more expensive. That shows that the government are aware that this pandemic, this COVID-19, is not a serious thing that has affected our people. It's only them whom they still want to milk from these donors. The issue of creating more millionaires seems to be an extending trend. But if the government was more concerned of the middle class people, in fact, those affected are these middle class people. As said by the previous caller, that this pandemic doesn't affect the people, the poor people. That is real because people who are farming in the rurals, they harvest all their meals in the forest, in their farms. They can cook using the butter from their dairy products. They don't know what is pandemic, what is COVID-19. In fact, they call you, how is pandemic that area? When the CS or BS is announcing that in Nandi today we had 4 cases, in Wajir we had 4 cases. But to them, they feel that those who are working in Haban are those who are affected and they are near to the COVID-19. So the government should even declare, they should stop even announcing this daily as a briefing. Let us just look, for example, Tanzania. Tanzania are working on well. Even America, I was seeing drum money during these campaigns. People are still attending like normal days. So this issue of COVID-19 was like something which those white people
are starting to read more into it because of where they are, because of the impact that it's having on their lives.
They thought this COVID-19 will finish us Africans. That's why even BBC still reports that why low death, why low cases. And even in Kenya right now, we are saying that COVID-19 is declining. No, because if today we can say out of 1,600 samples, we have 272 positives. That means that the testing level is low.
It is
if
true.
they could be testing like 4,000 before, we could still be reporting 700
higher cases,
positive cases.
Yagon, thank you. Let me pick John, who's calling in from Nairobi. Good morning, John.
Good morning, Eric, City, and Du.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Yes, I'm calling from Nairobi. I'm also one of the many Kenyans who lost their jobs early in the year. I was working for a renewable energy company that was supplying fuel to schools, and schools made up about 90% of our customers. So when schools closed and there was no longer any revenue coming in, and then it was clear that schools won't be open until later on, earlier on next year, then of course the board had to make a decision to make some employees redundant. So unfortunately, myself and many other people lost their jobs. Now, what I decry myself is the inability of government, of course, to keep a database of who these unemployed people are. And of course, for the stimulus packages and the other injections that the government will have done into the economy and to support the unemployed, there is no such a database, and people are suffering quietly. If Huduma number was successful, which was another big elephant that happened, then of course the government would have known who are unemployed, these are their contacts, how many dependents they have, because that is all the data that we provided.
John, if I may ask,
yeah, please do.
After you lost your job, so what have you been doing? How have you been surviving since then?
Fortunately for me, at least I had other contingency plans. So I had saved up with an education plan with an insurance company that had run for 8 years. So I withdrew all that money. And then I had my car, my wife's car. So I sold mine, converted one into a taxi. The other one also became a taxi. So at least I have two. And I cannot say that I'm lacking food. But how many other Kenyans didn't have such plans?
Some
so,
contingencies.
Yes, my kids haven't noticed that anything has happened because nothing has changed for them. But many other Kenyans are suffering. But of course, the other thing that people realize that they have to do is, even though you are a professional and you are highly educated, these are your qualifications, what else can you do? Can you swallow your pride and do something else to put food on the table?
Survival is the most important.
Sure,
Exactly.
John, the thing, it's very interesting that you said that. Could there be a way that, all of these names could be put in one place? Because what are we talking about that people need? When you realize then you don't have anything, what is the first need that you have? When you wake up in the morning and you realize that yesterday I had a job, today I do not, and there's no income coming in, what is the necessity at that point? Food on the table, making sure that people are fed. That's it, right? Making sure that rent is paid. So needs against the number of people then who don't have a job. And I thought that was interesting that that information can be put in one place, isn't it?
Yeah, it should have. And then, of course, at this point now, the unemployment pool has even grown wider. I've taken a few interviews myself in the last few weeks. And what I've also realized is that because HR professionals know that there are many unemployed people, it's interesting that market rates have reduced. So if a certain salary was for a certain position in the industry, you realize that many employers are no longer willing to
pay that high.
Yes, because they know that it's not just you who are unemployed, but we have many other more overly qualified people that are looking for the same jobs, which I find very dishonest, so to speak. Because why would you lower market rates? Because now you have more people to take advantage of.
We hear you, John, and thank you very much for sharing your experience this morning.
Thank you very much.
Asante sana. This is a Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation. This morning we're talking about the impact of COVID-19 on people's livelihoods. How has COVID-19 affected you so far? Also, comments coming in on social media. For example, Becky Kim says, listening to Paul, you feel the pain. Then you see someone say a BBI will cost only 2 billion. Honestly. 0719-012-600 is the number to call. Also, Spice FM KE, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. You can post your comment there. We want to talk about the impact of COVID-19 today. We also want to have a platform where people can express what they feel, express how you are faring in this time, express what you're going through. This is it. Good morning. It's coming up to 8 o'clock. In the next hour, we continue with this conversation.
Or 9 o'clock.
9 o'clock, actually, yes.
Spice up your life. 94.4 Spice FM. Nairobi. Traffic.
Crazy traffic on... I've been affected by CT. Crazy traffic on Uhuru Highway. This is all the way from the Nyayo Stadium roundabout and leading to Westlands, guys. It's still not looking good. But we understand that because of the construction and we've received that communication today, because of the construction that's taking place, and it's going to be that way for a couple of weeks, and actually months, looking at a stretch of some weeks and how that is going to be. So every day now, it means planning in advance. Let's look outside of Nairobi. Not too much traffic. We're looking at Mombasa, where it's looking good all the way from the ferry into town from Likoni. And then outwards, it's looking good. Kisumu also, it is the weekend, everybody leaving the city, but will not have too much traffic there either. Nakuru, we have some build-up coming into the town and also outbound in Nakuru as well. It is a Friday. This is what we expect. So hang tight, guys. We'll see what it looks like in about half an hour, where it should have gotten better now coming back into the city. Spice FM KE on Twitter. Get in touch.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Ouko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latif, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room,
So
the
2.5
only way
minutes
to
after
start
9
your
o'clock,
day.
This conversation continues. Chris Amolo says it's terrible, just hanging on there. It's depressing. Abu Jamal Dennis says, I was a private tutor of ICT in a college in Nyeri. Learning institutions have been off since March until further notice. Times have been tough with monthly bills to settle. Yesterday, I met a colleague who I worked with. He's ventured into welding into welding, from an ICT teacher to welding. Times are harsh, you know. And this is the story that's everywhere. I mean, this is hakuna kazi. The youth are saying hakuna kazi, wengine wetu wanahustle vibaya sana. 0719012600. How has this COVID pandemic impacted you financially and in your livelihood?
I mean, just looking at the fact that, yes, we still have quite a number of people. And it's interesting because we said before that COVID is democratic in that it's across board. It's not just people on lower levels of society in terms of an income. It's across board. It's people who used to earn in the millions on a weekly basis in a certain sector. And then because of this shutdown, you're going to nothing. It's people who were assured of at least a certain amount every day by virtue of the kind of business that they did. And then that has disappeared. And so that's why I asked the question. And I'm saying, what do people really need? It's where you had a luxurious life at some point to whereby you're saying, I need to be able to buy bread and milk for breakfast. In some cases, remove the milk. I need to have something hot in the morning and make sure that my children have. It sounds like something for the movies, but this is the reality. This is what is happening right now. There are people maybe who probably are too shaken to even say this is what we're really going through. And unfortunately, we can't see when this is going to end.
Actually, it's not one of these situations that you need to put a brave face for. This is one of those situations you need to face head on. Because that reality isn't going to go away tomorrow, the day after, even next week.
It's here for some
COVID
time.
is going to be with us here for some time. You know, the one pandemic that people don't even think it was a pandemic, but it was, that killed over 300 million people in the previous century was something called smallpox. I know people don't talk about smallpox simply because it was eradicated. But smallpox did that. Now, smallpox was with us for centuries. I'm not saying this pandemic will be with us for centuries. Well, no. Modern technology, modern science has enabled us to understand many things that we didn't understand. If smallpox could be eradicated, so can COVID. But it is with us, and the realities are also with us. So the difficulty here, I think, is not even in understanding or accepting COVID, but the change that it requires. That's where the difficulty comes in.
It's for all of us.
Yes.
There's a gentleman called Andrew Kibe. He's a media personality, and he posted something on social media talking about people speaking out. Share your experience. Say what you're going through. I mean, people are suffering in silence. And he's also now joining us on the line. Good morning, Andrew. Andrew, good morning. Okay, so I guess he's caught up in a conversation with someone else in the background. So Andrew Kibe, he posted this and said, you know what, people are suffering, people are not talking. You know of friends who are going through stuff. When you meet as friends, you're pretending as if everything is normal, and that's what City you're saying.
Yes.
Pretending as if everything is normal, and nothing has
is
changed.
normal.
Nothing is normal. Back at home, you are losing. You're losing your domestic belongings. You are being called by the bank left, right, and center, and then you're meeting with friends and you're behaving as if things are in the way they were in January 2020. Andrew, good morning.
Good morning. How are you guys?
We are
Well,
good.
well,
you.
thank you.
I hear you're having a very tough discussion this morning.
It's a tough one.
It's tough times calling for tough discussions, Andrew. And you posted something on people speaking out about what's happening to them during this COVID-19 time. And you're saying this is also based on personal experience and the experience of what everybody else around you is going through. Just give us a brief of, like, what have you seen?
You see, if everybody's going through the same thing and nobody's talking about it. Like now, let me give you an example. I was with some friends and I said, you guys, you know what? I have this debt that is just riding me crazy. And I've even gotten a letter from a demand letter. And the guy says, hey, by the way, I don't even come with my car anymore because they took it. I'm like, no way. We've been together this whole time. You never told me that this has happened to you.
Yeah.
Another friend of mine, they came and picked up his stuff because he's not paid rent for 4 months because his business was shut down. He was doing events, right? So we are 3 guys, and all 3 of us have an issue. And I asked myself, come on. Then
none of you has shared about their personal issues before.
About it. Nobody has talked about it before. We have lunch together. We even do business together. But nobody's going to say that these are my personal issues. Right now, I'm not able to survive. I don't know where I'm going to get my next meal. You get? And all the men have a story like that. But we all put up faces when we meet and we talk and we laugh and we talk about politics. And I'm saying, why are we talking about politics when these issues are killing us on a day-to-day basis? Politics will take care of itself. Why isn't the man talking? Why aren't we talking and saying this is what is happening? Now, if all of us today were to talk, right, then it would we would actually deal with that problem and say, hey, there's a problem here. How come men are not able to get out of debt? How come men are constantly in easy apps za kuitisha pesa hizi? Yeah, I mean, those apps are made for men. They're not made for women. Right? All the mobile loaning apps are made for men because men are the ones who are suffering out here. Some women don't even know what Fuliza is. But right now, there's no man in Kenya who does not know what Fuliza is. You understand what I'm saying?
Yep. So from your perspective, this is mostly an issue that affects men because men are not able to come and speak out about what they are going through, even with their closest friends.
No, you will not, because you want to look like you're doing okay. Nobody wants to look like a failure. Nobody wants to look like they don't have it together. Nobody does. I mean, who wants to be seen like, that they made a left instead of a right?
But imagine if everybody's in the same position and everybody is behaving in the same way. If you break the mold like you clearly have, you see, what you've done is not only brave, but it is what is actually needed if a solution is to be found. You can't solve a problem until you admit it exists.
Exactly. Exactly. Now we're all driving cars that we are one payment away from losing that car. Right? Kuna watu wameenda wakachukua hizi gari zao wakaficha kwa basement mahali ndio maauctioneers ama wale watu wa kutrack wasipate. Right? But where is all this property going to go if they're taking it all from us? Understand?
Nobody's going to buy the auctioned vehicle.
Exactly, but we need to protect ourselves. Nobody was in this position January 2020. Yeah, then we need to come out and say, hey, let's put a stop to all this nonsense. There's no repossession that's going to happen. Let's give the men a chance to get back what they had, what they have lost. But now if you take back everything that the little that they have left, what are you going to do to the man? You know how many suicides are going to come after maybe by end of September?
Right,
You know
and
how many
even taking
suicides
something
are there
away is
today?
more than just taking something physical away, but there's an element of emasculation that takes place here where, you're not just taking something physical away, but taking also something psychological whereby somebody's left at zero. And I hear you, Kibe, that it makes sense to actually speak out about what it is. Even though you may not get any immediate tangible help, there's something about being able to share an experience that gives you some strength.
Definitely. You know what Ndu is saying is something that most men attribute to women. Men aren't accustomed to bearing their souls.
This could be the opportunity to do that.
Thank you. Perhaps this is an opportunity, since COVID has brought so much change, perhaps this is an opportunity to reevaluate how we as men manage our issues.
Because we are carrying such a heavy weight. You cannot tell the woman in your life. There are some women who ako kwa nyumba kuna mzee anakufa na mwanamke ako na pesa kwa bank, but she will never know what this guy is going through.
Yeah.
Right? Because that is the situation we put ourselves in. Imagine this. You're in the house and auctioneers come and pick your stuff while your wife and kids are watching. Now you talk about emasculation. How does that man walk out of that house and go out into the world to tackle anything while his kid was crying a few minutes ago because his PlayStation has been taken away by the auctioneers? Why can't we protect ourselves and say, no, come on, this is Kenya. We're not going to do this to ourselves. Even Kenya has debt, man. Everybody has debt.
No. Actually, now, if you talk about the debt that Kenya has, my friend, you've taken that. Now it's become a solar system issue because the debts we owe, goodness.
It's crazy.
Tell me something, Kibe.
Yeah.
Why do you think we have difficulties talking about the things that are personal to us as men?
Because we were lied to when we were caught up.
Tell us about this lie.
You see, when you grow up, you don't like when I grew up. I didn't talk to my dad. There was nothing to talk about. He would go work, come back. It's a wrap. He would walk into the house at 11 and leave at 6. Now this was standard for all our fathers. Okay, so we never got to interact with them. So we never knew what kind of interaction happens. So we had to teach ourselves. Okay? Now, when you teach yourself, you're going to protect yourself because nobody is leading you. Nobody is telling you this is what you're supposed to do.
You'll be defensive,
right?
Huh?
You'll be very defensive. So you protect everything around you, and that's what we've done. Then you find you can never open your mouth to say, I have a problem. Because if you say you have a problem, you look weak.
Yeah.
And nobody wants a weak man in this
It's not I
society.
have a problem, it's I have failed.
And when you say you have a problem, how ordinarily speaking, of course, academically speaking, how would friends respond if you actually declare that you have a problem and you need help?
Nobody's going to help you. Nobody's going to help you because nobody wants to help. People want to celebrate.
Let me ask you perhaps another question. Is it that they don't want to help, or is it possible that they're in the same position and you?
They just don't want to tell you.
It's just that they are better. They're better than you at putting up a brave front.
Let me tell you a story. There's a person who went to church and wanted to pray for. They were praying for 3,000 shillings, and they were praying very loudly, saying, "Oh God, I just need 3,000." Then one guy who was next there said, "Hey, listen. Your problems are very small. Take this 3,000, get out of church. I need to pray for my miracle." You understand? Yeah. Take your small problems out of here. Take this 3,000. So whatever it is somebody is going through, somebody else can sort it. It doesn't matter. You get? Somebody else can sort it, maybe even with one phone call.
Just one move.
That's very interesting that you say that. Kibe, I mean, that's interesting that you say that because then it just lends again to the reason why then people need to open up. Because it could be that in the opening up, the answer, or at least even if it's a temporary solution, lies with whoever may be hearing it.
You must open up and say what is going on with you. Otherwise, you're going to die by yourself.
Actually,
everybody must do that.
Actually, when you accumulate, you don't know just how right you are. When you accumulate that amount of stress on yourself, the damage you do to yourself is actually immeasurable. And what I hear you saying, if I'm right, is that there is nothing unmanly about admitting that you do not have or admitting that you have a problem.
Exactly, and you're not a failure. You see, the thing is this, we are told that if you don't have, you're a failure. Yeah? You're not a failure just because you don't have. You just don't have. Not having is not a problem. Thinking of yourself as a failure is the problem. And that's why people are not talking, because every time they want to open their mouth, people, they will be judged. Anataka akienda nyumbani yuko ushago, aoneshane yeye ndio amekuja. You get?
Yeah.
But what are you doing to ourselves in the short run?
Big issue and big conversation to be had. We want to thank you very much, Andrew Kibe, for joining us this morning and for sharing this perspective. Asante sana, and we wish you a great day.
You too, man.
Thanks, Andrew.
The conversation continues right here on Spice FM. This is Kenya's biggest conversation at 16 minutes after 9. Let's see what's happening weather-wise, and then we will pick more calls. 0719-012-600. What's your experience? What's been happening to you since COVID-19 struck? In terms of economy-wise, how's your pocket? How you, if you lost a job, you know somebody who has lost an income or who's been heavily affected, would love to know, as well as Spice FM KE on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Instagram. Good morning.
Spice FM, Nakuru. Spice up your life.
Okay, so it's
The weather with Spice FM.
Warming up slightly, 17 degrees, mostly sunny. Conditions, but it's going to change later. The clouds cover with some rain expected later on. And in Nyeri, 17 degrees, also going to be a wet afternoon here with highs of 24. In Nakuru, we'll see highs of 24 as well, 23 rather, lows of 13 with rains expected later in the afternoon. 21 degrees, the high, and lows of 11 in Eldoret. Sunny conditions at the moment. In Kisumu, it's mostly cloudy at 21, highs of 27 and lows of 19. In Kakamega, it's 19 degrees and partly cloudy, into rains later with highs of 24 and lows of 15. It's a warm day in Mombasa, 27 degrees, highs of 28 and lows of 23 with partly cloudy conditions at the moment. Mostly sunny in Malindi as well, going to highs of 28. Kampala's 21 degrees and partly cloudy, highs of 27 and lows of 17, and a chance of rain later on in the day. Dar es Salaam still experiencing foggy conditions this morning at 26. It's going to go into showers later with highs of 29 and lows of 21. Joburg is mostly sunny at 14 degrees. Sunny conditions carry through the day, highs of 24 and lows of 9. Still experiencing rains in Lagos. It's going to be that way through till Monday. Highs of 30 and lows of 24 today. Let's take a last look into Europe, where it's mostly sunny in London at 13. Highs of 20 and lows of 10 with fog and cloudy conditions later on. And in Paris, it's clear skies at 18 degrees, going to highs of 28 and lows of 15. And we're going to wrap things up this Friday in New York, where it's now Friday morning. Sunny conditions. 31 the high today, coming down to lows of 18.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
It's 19:30.
Mornings done right.
What's really happening? Ongush Gilberta at Onguso HG. It's Onguso Gilberta. It has really been a big hit for middle class people, especially those living in town with families, and also got people with less savings into wrong road. Even providing a meal is becoming a big deal. So this is basically happening across the country. This is what is happening. Felix Taga says, well, the Situation Room covers all areas of life, discussing real issues, real time. Congratulations and thank you very much for that. Shiko calling in from Nairobi. Let's hear from Shiko. Good morning, Shiko.
Hi, Eric.
Hi.
So, there's a guy who called just earlier on, the guy who had been speaking to the bank.
Yep. This
and
is Tony in Rongai.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Because the catch is, I lost my job early on in this year.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a personal loan with one of the banks, and despite having approached them, I wrote an email, I've done phone calls, I've done follow-ups, but they are constantly just following up with you. It's as if overnight you found a solution to your debt.
Have you written to them?
I have written to them. I have explained my current situation because I used to work in the events industry.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, it's not, even if you find a different source of income, it's not bringing in the kind of income you had before that would allow you to facilitate loan payments.
Is it
And
what response do you get when you write to them, when you write to the bank and say and explain your situation? Do you get a written response?
When I wrote to them, they came back to me and they were like, if that they have a measure in place, and yes, but they need you to still make whatever little payment you can possibly make. Then after a while, they started saying bank policy says that they need to start demanding on the loan. And at this juncture, you're like, I've already moved out of my house. I barely could make rent. I'm basically living on the goodwill of others. Because I basically went up country. I've been farming. And anyone who's farmed in Kenya knows you're not assured of a great produce every single time. So even the little produce that you're making, you come back and you sell it. And you're basically making enough to just sustain yourself.
Just survive.
So even when the bank threatens to sell or auction your things, it's almost laughable because you're thinking, what are you going to auction?
You know what you're saying? It's like you've been caught in what you call the systems that banks have. When you owe money, what often happens is there is a department in almost every bank that deals with claiming for or looking for repayments. Now, they just follow a routine. There's no thinking involved here. It moves. These are the people who owe money.
This is what we are supposed to do. Bank
policy says, and they have the number, and it's not one person who has the number. And sometimes people are actually paid a commission on the amount of monies that they can actually recover for the bank. So they keep calling. In fact, even if you get 10 calls a day from different people, that shouldn't faze you. You're just in a system that they have. Now, the reason why the question of writing a letter comes in, if you don't document the things that you say or you speak with the bank, as far as they're concerned, it didn't happen. The reference point is your documentation, and don't get tired. If you're tired, take a breather and write again.
Write again.
Yes. If you're tired, take a breather. And also, make sure that you've given them a proposal. Something that you can do. If you don't have money, state so. And tell them that I'll get back to you in 2 months' time. Realistically, they will simply follow their procedure, but you will stick to what you have said. What you're doing is communicating, and what you're doing is providing yourself a reference point.
So where will this communication help you?
It'll help you because the banks are beginning to realize that the methods that they've had in the past aren't working. The debt portfolio is not getting less, it's growing. So they have to change the way they actually approach their clients. Because you're a client, that's how come you owe them money.
Yep.
Yes. And you probably have a history of having paid in the past. So they have to treat you differently. Even the banks and their policies haven't realized that this COVID has brought about change. That means that they themselves also have to change in the way they conduct their business. They haven't gotten there yet. And the only way they'll get there is if they see it. And I'm saying they're beginning to see it. When banks post losses, when the banks post reduction of, they don't post losses, just reduction in profit, they begin to realize that things aren't what they used to be. It's just that banks work in a certain way, and it takes a great deal of time before they actually even think of changing.
So what you're advising Shiko is she gets these calls from different officers.
She will keep getting.
But every time you get a call, write.
Just write. Don't get tired of writing. Write a formal letter. If you have a manager, address it to that manager. Yes, as previously discussed, this is what you said. My situation hasn't changed. I still don't have a job. I'm unable to pay you, but I will communicate within the month to tell you if my circumstances have changed. Keep writing.
I intend to.
I intend to pay. I am aware that I owe. I have no wish not to. Meaning you state your reality. Don't promise to pay if you can't pay. Because if you promise you're going to pay, they will hold you accountable for what you've said.
Shiko, does that make sense?
It does. hopefully the banks actually are also listening to this conversation.
Oh, they listen, all right. Don't worry. They listen.
Because what happens is, even for you who's actually taking a facility with them, at this juncture, for most Kenyans, anyone who's actually gotten caught out in such a situation is thinking, I will never go near another facility ever again.
Yeah.
Of course.
The thing about human beings is you will forget if things turn change and they are better, and you will go for another facility. But the thing is, don't go into a panic. Don't get overwhelmed by the calls. When people get overwhelmed, usually because they are good people and they have a conscience, and they actually want to pay, but they're not able to. So they're caught between a rock and a hard place. You can't pay. Tell the bank you can't pay.
Shiko, thank you very much. And we wish you all the best, Shiko.
Thanks.
Things can only get better. Blackwater in Mombasa.
Hey, guys. How you guys doing over there?
Hey,
We're well. How are you?
Sure. We're not doing too good here.
I imagine you are in the hospitality industry.
Yes, and we are looking at it from the perspective of the government really doesn't care. I mean, you look every time I look at Mutai Kagwe, he looks like he had a heavy lunch, a heavy breakfast. It looks like he's going to have a very comfortable evening, him and his family.
Yeah.
Most of these people really don't care. And I'm telling you the truth, when you look across the border, I mean, we have the same elements as Tanzania.
Yep.
And when you look at these people are surviving and everything is working over there, and you ask yourself, what is it that is stopping us from doing the same? You know, that's one. Now, we're looking at the issue of the banks. Okay, the banks are trying to work with the people. Now, guess what? KRA is on people's cases. KRA is telling you we need our money now. They're not really caring about COVID. You tell them COVID, they say no. And that's why the president said the economy seemed to have been moving, even with this COVID times, in comparison to last year. You know, and the reason is because KRA is forcing people, and they're telling you what? Demand later. We're gonna go into your account. We're gonna come and take your property.
Yep.
You know, they don't care about COVID. Where does KRA come in? Where do people don't talk about this stuff? Why can KRA hold on these taxes? You know, because all we're doing is making sure all these leaders are living a good life. That's all we're doing. But nobody ever brought that up at all. You know.
Yeah.
You know, that's the situation right there.
Thank you, Blackwater. Thank you. And actually, Mwenda Kisilu says, Kenya is a scam. Since March, unemployment, unpaid leaves. So sad that the government hasn't done anything tangible to save the situation. I envy Tanzanians because they have honest leaders who allowed them to live with COVID and continue with their lives. Getting to a point where, you know, you just look at it and it doesn't really matter whether the situation in Tanzania could be worse, could be better. It doesn't matter. You're just seeing that grass there. It looks green.
That's it.
That's all I am seeing. And also, let's not forget the utility companies. So you have a landlord who wants their rent. You have a bank that you've taken a facility with. They want their money. You have Kenya Power. You have the water services, water and sewerage service providers. They also want their money.
Eric, remember, you have a landlord who probably also owes the bank money.
Also owes the
and
bank.
needs that rent that you pay him
And
to be able to pay his facility at the bank.
The bank is threatening to auction that entire building.
Yes, those 10 people who like calling people are also calling him.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's a very unfortunate situation, but let's continue having this discussion. What is it that then we can do? How can we expect the government to do more? If you look at what the National Treasury was saying, the kind of relief measures that the government introduced, they were meant to go to the ordinary person. If you talk about lowering VAT, makes cost of goods cheaper. Talking about
Eric, ordinary person is mwananchi mashinani,
mwananchi wa kawaida.
Mwenye nchi.
Mwananchi yule mdogo. You know all those words. Yule mwananchi yule mdogo wa kawaida. That's the one.
Yani the salt of the earth.
Yes.
Okay.
That's the one. But let's take a break, take a look at traffic. We'll pick more of your calls. 0719-012-600. It's 9:30.
Spice FM, Nakuru. Spice FM. Spice up your life.
Okay,
Traffic.
so Muguga. Where's Muguga?
Mogoga.
And Rironi.
Lironi.
people think that the place is Limuru. It's actually not Limuru. They have different names. But Rironi is the Limuru area.
Is Rironi, Mugoga is Mugoga.
Yes.
Okay, thanks. Now I know exactly where it is. Thanks.
They're on the same
So
side
I
of the
guess
road.
heading out of Nairobi.
Yep, on the same side of the road,
Friday.
heading towards Nakuru.
Voila. There's some heavy traffic.
Past the former Zambezi motel.
CT, you must tell us of your travails on the countryside. However, there's some massive traffic there this morning. There's a major traffic jam heading out of the city. We expect this on Friday. So if you're approaching the area, approach with caution because it's not moving as quickly as you expect it to. Museum Hill in the city of Nairobi. There we have some traffic. It's packed jam. Jam? Right, okay. So yeah, that's what's going on. And so is little parts of Mombasa Road and Uhuru Highway still a problem this morning. Spice of MKE, that's how you can reach us on Twitter.
What is it, City?
It's packed jam. What else could it?
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
So just to allow you to recover from that sparked jam, let's hear from Johnson Odero from Kahawa West. Good morning, Johnson.
Good morning, Eric. Ndu shikamo.
Mahraba.
Mara.
Did I not try?
No.
You
It was
did,
good.
you did.
It was good.
Thank
It was
you.
good. It can
Now
fly.
do marahaba.
Marhaba.
Yes.
Okay.
Marahaba.
Marhaba.
Okay. Site.
Baba.
How are you, Mugo? Yesterday you are Mugo.
Kaka si jambo, sijui wewe.
Niko salama nashukuru.
Asante.
Now, Eric, my contribution is most of the people who called there, I think they are middle class so-called because some people having a bank to facilitate some loan and some staff, some people who've been retrenched and that kind. There are this other group of Wanjiko who maybe were eating on a daily basis. His budget or their budget is a daily budget. Go wash some clothes, get my 100 or 200 bob budget with that end. So where you're going to do that house is not there.
Yep.
1 month, 2 months, 3 months down the line, the landlord is here, your kids go to eat. The question is, what am I going to do? And my take is, it's now reached a point whereby if you are washing clothes or you are doing any other kind of stuff in the Jokali sector, you have to rethink again. What is it that can I do? Instead of just sitting, what can I do that can give me food on the table? But if we sit down as a people expecting this government to do something for the people, even if the teachers they employ, they don't know their number. They pay salary too. They don't know their number. What about ordinary citizens who are not employed in any sector in the government and expect government to feed them or to take care of them? It's not going to happen in this century, even in the century to come.
They
So
will
when you
not
sit
have
down and
that
look at
data.
they don't have and they not have it anytime soon. So when people sit down and think that the government is going to stop corruption to take care of them, is going to open up the economy so that they can do business, it's not going to happen. So if we think in the line of the government, as a people, we are not going to get any help.
Okay.
My advice is, if you can tell Mandari somewhere, people who are in a construction site that is operating in your nearby environment, do that. If you can sell some vegetable, you can sell some tomatoes, some fruit somewhere, so that at the end of the day, you can earn your 10 shillings, you can budget with your 10 shillings, or that amount that you can earn. But
It's about survival, not about pride or anything else.
No. And two, talk with your landlord. Me, I know I did direct with my landlord. I tell her this month, this is what I have. Are you going to take or what do you want me to do? He tells me, bring what you have, but Kazana, do something more. So people should not run away from the landlords, from the agents. Have a sit down, have a conversation. Let them get the side of your story. Isikwe too that you want to assume they understand. Some don't.
They
So
need to
make
be
a call.
convinced. Thank you, Johnson.
Hey, thanks a lot.
Asante sana. Matthew in Nakuru.
Hi, how are you?
Fine, thank you.
Let me just stop. Okay, that is perfect. I enjoyed what Kibet said a few minutes ago. Men out there are seriously suffering. And unfortunately, we've been brought up to, not talk about it. Our ego will not allow you to say that, this is what I'm going through. And as a result, men out here are getting sick. Many men out here are sinking into depression in very, very serious ways. You lock someone's house, someone who has a family. What does that do to his ego? What image does it portray to his family? And unfortunately, we are in a society where you want to talk about it to even your spouse, but you can't, because some of the spouses that these men have are not even understanding. And I can point out more than 10 marriages that have broken in the last 4 months. This is someone who was being given bread and butter every single morning. Then all of a sudden, this stops. Now, the one person that you think would understand your current situation does not.
Your
they
life
even
partner.
decide to walk out on you.
Yep.
Your life partner, someone you sleep under the same blanket with, does not understand your predicament. They opt to walk out on you. And by the time they're walking out on you, knowing what you're going through, knowing that you can't even pay rent, their account is full of money. But they will not share this money with you. And as a result, like Kibe said, until you sit down with your fellow man over a cup of strong tea, umwambie by the way, hapa mimi yeye nimegongana, nimejaribu kutafuta tu saa 2 imegonga ukuta. Jamaa anakuambia unasema saa 2. Mimi nimejaribu kutafuta 800 juzi nilipe tu nijazilie nilipe rent ikakataa.
Yeah.
That is unfortunately what we're going through. Now, someone from Mombasa called and said that, you look at Motaikago, maisha yao iko sawa. They come report to you at TV, they are doing things to mitigate this, and then they are okay.
We can only assume they are okay.
Kenya is a scam. Kusema ukweli vile tu mtu amesema Kenya is a serious scam.
Lakini kusema ukweli ndugu yangu, can you really know hali ya mtu kama
he's earning a salary, bottom line?
Yes, he's earning
bottom
a salary.
line, City. He's earning he took a 30% pay cut, but he has a government-fueled vehicle. He has 70% of his salary.
For him.
Yeah, and he's still getting tea and pancakes in the office.
Exactly. For 40 million.
For 40 million.
Yaani John, wewe na Eric mnajua waziri anakulaga chai na anakunywa chai na pancakes asubuhi.
Na sausage mbili.
Na sausage mbili.
Na samosa inashinda kwa ofisi imejaa chai kutoka asubuhi mpaka jioni.
Thank you, Matthew. Let's hear from Philip. Philip in Laikipia, good morning.
Good morning, Eric.
How are you?
Fine, thank you. How is Ndu and City?
Ndu is
fine, thank you.
City is also fine.
Yeah, I don't think if I also recommend you for the good work you are doing, it will be a repetition, and I don't think it will do any harm.
No, it will not do us any harm.
Yeah, now, to the topic now. People are hard hit and seriously hurt by this pandemic. That's the truth of the matter. And, an uncle of a friend of mine who I host now, called him just a few days ago. If we could assist him accommodate an overwhelming number of relatives who would gone to stay with him, and he's being hosted and somebody's calling, an uncle is calling him to see him. And I can say this is as a result of this government telling people stay at home, stay indoor, while they're coupling even the donations that people are this country were giving. I think I'll say, Eric, is I don't know. The first call, our previous call had called and said to find a way in which we can actually we can speak out just like you've given this forum.
Yeah.
This government is messing with these people. I remember one time Sakaja said the government is acting like it is its own citizen, and to some extent, that's true.
Because if there's no action,
Philip,
and you see,
your line is actually getting worse. I don't know what's happening to your line from where you're calling from. Just try and call back. Zachary in Nakuru, good morning.
oh, good morning, guys.
How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. I'm taking my college,
Mm-hmm.
and I would want to tell Du that it is not Muguga, it is Mogoga.
Got it.
In fact, the person who
Yeah,
should have
it-
corrected her is Mr. Mogo, who's right here.
Yeah, Mr. Mogo, my namesake. You know, I'm Mogo, I'm Zachary Mogo, yeah?
Ah, no wonder. You have this
That is why I'm
rapport.
so fond of Marimadro,
Andrew
because our
Mugo.
names almost rhyme the same.
Yes.
Okay.
You know, I'm not certain
Now,
when
guys-
this baptismal service took place, but clearly
Yeah.
it has gotten hold of the.
And you are now.
Yeah.
You have done good to tell people to open up, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and that is why we celebrate you, okay?
Mm.
And let me say that not every one of us is actually affected, but most of us are affected, okay?
Yep.
And when I talk of not everybody is affected, definitely those who are handling the COVID kit and whatever, they are not suffering a lot, yeah. But the rest of us, including you people in the studio now, there, I'm very sure you have also changed, yeah.
Yep.
But let me talk about the financial institutions, and in particular one that I want to mention, yeah. Whereby, like me, with the work that I do, I mostly deal with schools, churches, hospitals, and even individuals, yeah. Because I supply potted flowers, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
When I get a check, my check goes through that bank, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And these guys are very, they are very, I don't want to say that they are cunning, but what they do is that they will upgrade your loan status depending on the money in your account.
Mm-hmm.
Now, suppose the checks are not coming because the schools are not there, you know, and then now you try to apply for a loan, they tell you, no, you do not qualify,
Yeah.
okay?
Yeah.
So I wrote to them, I told them, you guys, I have seen that you cannot be afraid in need, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
Because when I have money, you are telling me that you can extend it 3 times what I have, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
But now the times of COVID have not been bringing money. You are telling me I do not qualify. So you are a fake, okay?
Yeah.
And going forward, I know how I'm going to deal with you too. You know, our journey is going to be okay.
The relationship
However,
will be
that's not
reset.
yeah, now also the people, you know, us people, yeah, especially men, yeah, we are having so many problems because the family wants, your relatives want, your shoshu want, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and also our side kids, they are suffering. Like me, I'm considering vetting them, yeah.
Sorry, you're
From
what?
8, the 3 quiz, the child 6, from 8 to 5, yeah, to 3, yeah. Okay.
Why 3? Why moving from 8 to 3? Why not
Because
4?
I
Why
cannot-
not 0?
Eric, I cannot be able to sustain the 8. Okay, so I the one who are not going to qualify, I'll tell them, oh, you go there, look out for Marimadros, whatever, they have money. So let me remain with the 3. Okay. That is how life has been actually, and it's a reality. Have a nice day, guys.
Zachary, have
Say
a nice
hello to your
weekend.
8 friends.
Okay, so body Madros should expect to have one, okay?
I have heard you. I have heard you.
Thank you, Zachary. 0719-012-600. That's 0719-012-600. The impact of COVID-19 to our livelihoods, you know, since March up to now, the people who lost their jobs immediately, like even before the first case was announced, people already in the hospitality sector had lost their jobs.
Yep.
After schools were closed on March 15th, people who now were employed by boards lost their jobs soon after. These include not just teachers, but even the other support staff who are employed by the boards. And that's why now the schools are really urging the government to support them in sustaining these employees. But the fact of the matter is that people have lost jobs. Those, you can also imagine, so those who are salaried were also employing some people. So you had maybe somebody working in your home as a domestic worker, as a gardener, all those people have also lost their
And those
jobs
people
as a
who you
result.
employ also employ others.
And they also employ others. So it's a long chain of people who basically have been impacted by COVID-19. What are the other governments have done? So if you look at what the other governments have done, like the UK government and paying people, the UK government spent a lot of its resources to say, okay, we are going to be able to, everybody who's been followed and lost their job, we are going to pay their company so that this company can pay you. Even now, when you're saying we're talking about going back to work, the UK government is supporting the hotel industry by saying if you go to any eating establishment, whatever meal you eat, a percentage of it is being paid by the government. You know,
That's the idea of reviving the economy.
that's the idea of reviving the
Right.
economy.
So even when they say opening up, it's opening up, but it's still, affording a hand, a helping hand.
There's
to say that
support.
this is what we can do. With the realization that as the economy opens up and people get back to work, they will be able to replenish their reserves. But right now, what is needed is that the people need to survive. Who are you governing if not the people that you're there for?
And the
Realizing that they need to be taken care of.
And the taxman doesn't sleep just because you have COVID.
The taxman has targets set by the government.
Yes.
The taxman has been told they need you to raise 1.6 trillion shillings this year. It doesn't matter whether people have money or not. I
COVID
need
be
1.6 billion shillings. If you don't do that, you lose your job as a taxman. If you look at our budget and the way the budget was, the National Treasury said this is a budget for helping us to recover economically, but also to push ahead with the development. Was enough attention given in the budget to helping people?
Was it even
social support for people?
I think it's brilliant that you bring that in because you've just come off of the example of the UK, right? When you're looking at a budget that would be, when you look at it more or less set in stone, right? Were these things actually considered? So when we talk about making, the process of budget making, it's so many other things to take into consideration. The same UK that you give an example of, the budget had been read. It was done. But what did they do? They had to invite a special sitting of parliament
To redo
to
it.
come in and redo it. The entire budget redone. Why? For the specific need to buffer the people of the country. Not anything else.
Yep.
Just that. So the planning, the whole process. We spoke to the Auditor General this morning. The process of planning, sitting down and having an open, honest conversation about what is going on. Who do you need to protect?
With your
Whose
current
pockets
reality.
do you really need to line with your current reality? It is the people who are suffering, that don't have food on a daily basis. That's what we're talking about. So it's more than meets the eye whereby, okay, yeah, well, every June, July, we need to have a budget. Let's sit down and make it. What are you putting into consideration? Do you really think that the government of the United Kingdom, had they not planned well in advance, do you think it would have been so easy for them to come and have this special sitting of parliament so that they could buffer the people? Had they not planned for a rainy day, as it were? Do you think it would have been that easy to make that decision?
To answer your question, or is it a rhetorical question?
Well, reality and rhetorical. It's okay.
Well, actually, yes, it wouldn't have been easy. But here, what comes to the fore is the determined will to ensure that they do good.
By their people.
Yes.
Yep. Just to address, if you look at, for example, the brilliant programs that the government is running right now, the cash transfer programs, Kazim Taani and the rest, they're all coming to an end next month.
It's finished.
And then?
Right?
Yeah.
Next month, they come to an end. It doesn't mean that the need has disappeared.
No, it hasn't.
Because Kazim Taani is going to impact livelihoods of very many people across the country. It's not even meeting. It's just a drop of the people in need. Like the CS for the Interior was telling us, Dr. Kibicho, we're looking at over 1 million people who need this money, but we are only able to deal with 300,000 youth.
But consider those numbers are not decreasing. They're
They're
going
not
to increase.
decreasing. They're increasing.
Yes.
If we come to the end of this funding in October, then what? If we had come up with if maybe the mandarins in the National Treasury and the others would look and say, this is what we need to do. All of us, just like businesses are doing, it's about survival for the next 1 year. How about to do the same? It's about survival for the next 1 year. So yes, continue with this program for Kazim Taani, continue, expand it. And what you're doing is you are going to do the basics, repair the infrastructure, because that is what they were saying. We need to put in money so that we hire the youth to go and work in repairing the infrastructure that has been dilapidated by the rain. That is required. That's needed. That's good. But it also keeps people working, and it puts money in people's pockets. Is that what we're hearing for us from our government? Hey, no.
You know, the thing is, those good intentions sometimes get drowned in the issues that we now keep discussing, like the COVID saga.
funds. Oh.
Yes. It gets drowned.
Who has approval, who doesn't?
Yes, exactly. And the amounts that are involved, unfortunately, people do the quick math and say, wait a moment, wait. Are you telling me that this amount of money is being lost and there are people who don't even know whether they're going to survive the day? And these people we're talking about are Kenyans who have the same exact right as everybody else. And they have the same exact expectation that they should have from their government. And it is actually their government's mandate and requirement to ensure that this individual, this one who is most vulnerable, is actually looked after. Yes.
But at least I think unless we, the people, start talking, the government will not know. Well, they know, of course.
Or they won't ignore it.
The government will not ignore anymore. So it's important that people start talking about these things. It's important that you start having these conversations. Now you cannot even go and bury yourself somewhere with your sorrows because bars are closed. So just find platforms and forums.
No crawling into a bottle.
Yep. Find friends and networks and start saying, this is what we are doing, this is what we are going through. How can we come through this together? What is it that we can do? Maybe you'll even come up with an idea of what you can do.
You know, what I liked was the men came out and voiced their issues. But this isn't a problem that only men are facing.
No, it isn't. No, it isn't.
No. This has hit women, I could even argue, probably even harder. Because in many of
all statistics are showing that more women have lost their jobs and incomes.
Yes. And given the fact that in many households, the people who actually look after the family are the women
who
in
are
the
keeping
family.
it together.
Yes. So the women may not have spoken, or we may not have heard, but they are suffering the full force of this particular situation that we are in. Full force.
Platforms and forums need to start emerging in the community, where people share, where people start seeing what can we do together, where people come together. The whole Harambee spirit is not just about giving money, but also giving a helping hand, giving a shoulder to lean on.
Absolutely. And that's the thing, because we talk about the state of mental health in this country and many other countries as we go through.
Yeah.
And one of the things that you do as a way of help when you do have a mental health issue is talking about it. That doesn't mean that you get well tomorrow, but that means that you're able to ease through today. There could be, and like you said, the answer could be around the corner. There could be somebody who may not offer you money to buy food on the table, but there could be somebody who would offer you a solution to get to that place. It is extremely important because I think very easily society can creep into that where you're insular about your issues and not speaking out. And it sounds morbid, but we're going to get to the place where people are going to see the solution to this is by taking their own lives.
Actually, you're talking about it as though it is something that is going to happen. It is happening. Yes. I was being told a story of a young man who committed suicide, and all his friends wondered why, because he's an upbeat guy, gregarious, he has friends, seems to be doing well. And it turns out that fellow had been out of employment for the last 4 months. Nobody knew.
Nobody knew about it.
Neither did his wife.
My goodness.
He would wake up every morning as he was going to work, committed suicide. Now, there's nothing that cannot be resolved if there is the will to resolve it and if there's the determination to find a solution. Now, the solution may not meet your master. It may not be what you would like, but it is a solution. Now, the Harambee spirit you mentioned, Derek, why I'm picking up on that is this. There are very many people in this country who will tell you that if it wasn't for this and so who helped, and they would never have gone to school, they would never. The country is replete with those stories. Yeah. Now, that is a spirit that must be revived, must be found. Because right now, this individualism that we've been moving towards for the longest time, that thing is not working.
It isn't.
My neighbor's problem has to be my problem.
Yeah. We've got to go through this together.
Mm.
So as we come to the end of the show today is the 4th day of September 2020. Monday will be the 7th day of September. Looking back a year and a month ago, Friday, the 9th of August, 2019, the Situation Room went live on air. It's been a year. Lovely, lovely year. Well, we sort of forgot on the 9th of August this year.
We did. So much has happened in that
so much
year.
is happening.
And so much has happened this year.
It sort of passed by. But we also, it's been a lovely experience doing this show, having these conversations on a daily basis, looking at what's happening in the country, reflecting that, and having our audience contribute to this. How's it felt for you, City?
You know, it's one of those situations where you look back and you say, how time flies.
You know?
It means I'm a year older.
Can you imagine? And a month. A year and a month.
But the thing that I have found refreshing over that year is what our audiences have had to say. The comments they've made, their contribution, their critiquing, their encouragement, their participation, and the increased participation. What I have found even intriguing, even more intriguing, is that the number of people who actually listen and we have no clue. You get to have a clue when somebody calls in for the first time and they tell you, I've been listening to you since day one. And then there are many others. Or someone makes a comment and tells you, last week when you said this, it means they were listening.
Yep.
Now, that is what I feel has been one of the most encouraging things I could hear, because it means that whatever we are saying here resonates with our listeners and resonates with our fellow citizens.
And it feeds also into what we are saying.
Yes.
It feeds also into our thinking and our perspective of things.
Yes.
Which is the importance of having, an interactive show. This is what we strive to do on a daily basis. We must have interaction with the audience, because this is what the whole idea of having a conversation is all about. It's not just about us talking.
No. We could as well go to our homes and look at the mirror and talk.
It's about having a conversation with everybody.
Yeah, definitely about having that conversation and just really understanding that there are people who are listening and could be making decisions based on what is being said in this room, or could be changing the narrative, or could be changing their thought process, or contributing to their thought process. And if we can just segue from what we've been talking about just now, that because of the fact that you don't keep it in, because of the fact that you're being open about how your government treats you, you're being open about what you think should be in terms of development in your country, you're open about what you think is going on around the world, it now contributes to a bigger conversation then for change. And it's really resonated with me that, again, it's just not three heads sitting in here talking to themselves, but there are people who are listening, there are people who are contributing, and hopefully people who are changing.
Yes, and indeed, even when you get calls and much follow-up from people in authority, from people in government, in government offices, both at the national and the county level, saying, we heard what you were saying this morning, maybe we'd like to clarify, maybe we are hearing what the people are saying, and this is what we're going to do. Kichini, this has happened on a weekly basis. We get this feedback from the officers that ought to be listening to take action. And when you see that action is being taken, it's very important.
Absolutely.
However, I think, today we've just been coughing a lot, just clearing our throats, not coughing because of the dry cough. But
and CT came from Central.
And CT has just managed to basically just go with the word literally. Irregularly.
It is called a red lorry, yellow lorry moment. Yes.
Having a number of those this week. So we have been having a conversation with our bosses, and they've allowed us to take a break, at least to go and recharge our batteries, which is important, drink some water. So for the next 5 days of next week, we will not be live on air, but we'll be playing some of the shows that we've had this past 1 year, 1 week. 1 year, 1 month, sorry.
Yeah, we'll help you reminisce. Looking back, listening back, participating back.
Yep. On everything. But also we'll be there live on our social media platforms. We'll be able to see what you're saying. We'll be continuing the conversations. And we want to thank you very much for this 1 year. So the Situation Room will be...
Sugar and spice and everything nice. Spice it.
Spice up your life.
And the Monday will be the 14th.
That Monday, the 14th.
Yes.
And we hope that we'll have another.
Let's
great
be
year
clear, the 14th of,
September. Yes.
Yes.
It's just a week, right?
Yes.
Sindio?
Mm-hmm.
So thank you very much for tuning in. Keep it right here. This is Spice FM, the Situation Room. The conversation continues online and on radio. Next week, you'll hear some of the conversations that we've had with you. Goodbye. See you on the 14th. Between now and 3 o'clock, you still have uninterrupted music. Monique will be here at 3 o'clock to drive you home on Spice Drive. The adults in the room will be here from 7 to 10, and you'll have a lot more conversations. Have a lovely weekend, folks. CT Muga, Ouko, and Eric Latif signing off. Good morning. It's 10 o'clock.